Welcome to Capital One Bowl Mania.
As we spring into a new year, we look back at where we once were. Last year at this time, Michigan and Florida were considered huge disappointments. But this past fall, behind the strength of new leading men, the Wolverines and Gators had impressive turnarounds. And now, with the optimism that a new year can bring, it only seems fitting that these two rising stars of the game meet on this January 1st. To the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl as part of Capital One Bowl Mania. We are in Orlando as both Michigan and Florida look to win the last game of the season on the first day of 2016. Good afternoon, everybody. Mike Patrick at Cunningham. It's great to have you with us. Dr. Jerry Punch will join us shortly. We have a matchup of two outstanding defenses today. And for Michigan, first-year head coach Jim Harbaugh rode that unit to 9 wins. And it could have been so much better.
Go all the way back to the beginning game against Utah. 3 interceptions with a new quarterback, all new receivers. And that's why those interceptions were thrown. If they win that, drop punt against Michigan State to lose that, win that. Maybe they have more confidence going into what looked like a blowout at the end against Ohio State. But Harbaugh, of course, the quarterback at Michigan, quarterback in the NFL, he got himself a really good quarterback. The new hot term this year, the grad transfer quarterback from Iowa, Jake Rudock. This is a guy who started 25 games at Iowa, threw for nearly 5,000 yards. He was beat out by C.J. Beathard. As a matter of fact, it was in the bowl game last year that Beathard played better than him. And so Rudock came to Michigan, has played really well. But against Ohio State, he did injure his left shoulder, was not able to finish the game. He says he's completely healthy. But one thing we'll track is the non-throwing shoulder took him out of the game against Ohio State.
In the second half of the season, Florida's offense was so ineffective. That great defensive unit they have may have to score today for them to have a chance to win.
Well, they lost 27-2 to Florida State at the end of the regular season. I'll give you a guess at how they scored. Well, it came from the defensive line. Caleb Brantley, John Bullard, number 57 and number 90. They will be coming to an NFL city. Bullard first. He's going this year. Brantley's coming back for another year. These are as good a defensive tackles as Michigan will have seen as a pair all year long. But these are the best corners in the country. Vernon Hargraves will be a top 5 pick. Already said he's coming out. Jalen Tabor only in his second year. The guy on the left says about the guy on the right, he can do some things on the field the rest of us can't. Tabor in his second year is trending towards greatness.
Thank you, Ed. We'll check in with Dr. Jerry Punch for the first time in this new year, then have the kickoff when we come back to Orlando. Welcome back to Orlando. The Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl, Michigan and Florida. Our first chance to check in with Dr. Jerry Punch. Doc?
Thanks, Mike, and hello, everybody. Folks, these two programs have just so much in common. Both are led by coaches in their first year who were hired to return these once prominent programs back to national relevance. Now, Jim McElwain for Florida turned a struggling Colorado State program around, but even the most diehard Gator fan couldn't have predicted he would come to Gainesville and win 10 games and an SEC division title. Jim Harbaugh on the other side of the field left a successful NFL job to come back to his alma mater and instill some toughness and focus in the maize and blue. And folks, understandably, the fan bases of both schools are invigorated as every ticket for this game was sold in the first 24 hours, making it the fastest sellout in the 70-year history of the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl. Mike, this place is absolutely packed.
All right, thank you very much, Doc. And a surprise to start the ball game. Florida won the toss, elected to receive. Just off the top of your head, you would think with that great defense that they would want to be on defense first.
If you're struggling on offense, why not send them a message and say, hey, let's see what you've got. You'd have a month off. Treon Harris, the signal caller, of course, has had some struggles down to the end, at the end of the game. And Jim Harbaugh rolls out a very good defense. He's retained Greg Madison as a defensive line coach off of Brady Hoke's staff. Today, Madison will be the interim defense coordinator. Don Brown was hired to replace DJ Durkin, who left to take the head coach job at Maryland.
The other thing about this decision is Kenny Allen to get set to kick off. Some of your big play guys are on special teams, like the return man right now, Vernon Hargrave. 7 yards deep, won't get the chance. And the Gators will start from scrimmage with no return on the kick. In the SEC championship game lost to Alabama, Treon Harris struggled with 9 complete passes, 165 yards. He had a touchdown and an interception. On the season, the sophomore completed only 52% of his passes. That put him 115th in the FBS. He has thrown 9 touchdown passes this year, but has also thrown 5 interceptions.
Jim McElwain hired Doug Nussmeier, who was let go with the Brady Hoke staff last year from Michigan. And Nussmeier has talked about movement in the run game with the quarterback. I'm not sure you're going to see a straight run game with the quarterback, but I think he will run it more than you've seen during the regular season.
Kelvin Taylor is his running back. He's on the verge of 1,000 yards. Stuck at 985, pretty much shut down by the last 2 opponents, Florida State and then Alabama in the SEC championship.
And this offensive line has been a struggle all year for this front and for this group. And Mason Halter, the grad transfer starting right tackle, academically ineligible. So up front, Fred Johnson, the true freshman, starting, and Tyler Jordan, another true freshman, right next to him.
Nice pickup there by Treon Harris. Got to the 34-yard line. Let's take a look at today's key to the game, brought to you by Franklin American Mortgage. Ed?
Well, for Florida, get the quarterback run game. And there you see it. That was a called pass. But when Treon Harris looks first and second, reads they're not there, take off. He is gifted in the run game. For Michigan, keep a lid on it. There is no reason to play really aggressive coverage without safeties deep, because Florida has guys who can run by you. Callaway, Robinson, these guys can run by you. But if you make them earn it and don't give them big chunk throws, I think you can make Treon Harris turn it over.
Need to reach the 35 for a first down. They'll rely on Taylor. A lot of defenders there, and Taylor knocked down right at the line. It looks like that side judge is going to mark it past the 35. That will be a first down. Maurice Hurst, the nose man, gets credit for that tackle.
Taylor, who has said he will go pro, is the son of Fred Taylor, who had a terrific game on this field in his last game in college. But just right there at the end, and that's Chris Wormley coming over. Wormley, a guy, defensive lineman, 6'5", 300, who got a little tired of hearing how good the Florida defense was this week. He was saying, well, wait a minute. We were a top 10 defense as well. So you can see Wormley's got his motor going a bit.
Illegal substitution. Offense. 12 players line up for formation. 5-yard penalty. First down.
So that'll cost them 5. Florida is missing Jordan Scarlett today, one of the 3 running backs that they rotate. So they will rely on Taylor and Cronkrite. Scarlett suspended for a violation of team rules. A lot of that going around during bowl season, isn't there?
Yeah, and the bad news for Florida in the kicking game, Austin Harden, who's had a real struggle this year, sprained his ankle yesterday. Just stepped on a teammate, rolled his ankle. He was already replacing Jorge Powell, who's out with an injury. So it may go down to 2 walk-ons, Neil McInnes and Dallas Stubbs, who were brought back to the team this year.
Michigan shows blitz, jumps out of it. This pass is incomplete. Caught at the sideline, but dropped. Joe Bolden in on the coverage. The Michigan defense, if you think Florida struggled all year, look what they have to face today. The Michigan defense, 11th in the country, averaging a little over 17 points a game. Passing yards, they're 3rd. Just an outstanding unit. They wore down a little bit late in the year, had some injuries up front, but they're in better shape as they come to this bowl game. Taylor.
And
33 and no more.
The only coach that was held over from the Brady Hoke staff by Jim Harbaugh was a really good coach in Greg Madison. He's been forever a defensive coordinator. As a matter of fact, he was a defensive coordinator just here at Michigan last year. Don Brown was hired to take over for DJ Durkin from BC, who had a wonderful year on defense. And Greg will go back to just coaching the defensive line. Visiting with him yesterday, he said it's kind of nice just to focus on my 6 or 7 guys and not have to do anything else. And so Madison coordinate today, and the wonderful coach who was held over and has done a terrific job with this front. We'll go back to just coaching the front.
Been a good coach for a long, long time. Pressure coming. Harris out of the pocket on the run. 40, 45. First down across midfield. That's what Treon Harris can give this offense. That gain 17 yards.
You know, there was, coming into a bowl game, everyone wonders, oh, are you going to see a whole different offense? And, you know, a lot of the Michigan people thinking, would they install with Treon Harris kind of a zone read quarterback run offense? And the answer is no, because that's not what they want to build here. Harris was a pocket passer in high school. They'd like him to develop, but they don't want to just reinvent something for a guy who can run. But, boy, this guy surely can run. They want to be a running back-based run team, but this guy has some wheels.
Harris sets up to throw. Man in his face. Throws deep. Underthrown. Almost caught anyway. Threw it into double coverage, and it ended up coming off the hands of Ahmad Fullwood. And that has been the problem with Harris. When he tries to go deep, just terribly inaccurate.
Well, he held onto the ball and took a nice hit there. Good clean hit at the end by Joe Bolden, but give Ahmad Fullwood all the credit in the world. That was an interception from the throw. Jeremy Clark was in great position. The safety's closing, and the 6'5" or 6 foot Fullwood goes up and makes a wonderful defensive back play.
Now in the pistol formation, Harris short set, flanker screen. Taken by Callaway. Callaway with that great speed inside the 35-yard line. 25-yard gain. Thurman was out there. David Sharp, the sophomore left tackle, was out there to provide key blocks.
Watch big number 78 slip to the outside and just excellent feet. You don't have to go out against a smaller guy and knock him down, but watch how 78, who had foot injuries all year, just stayed upright. He didn't lean forward. That's a big man getting out in space against a tiny corner. Nice job, Sharp.
The more times Callaway touches it, the better off the Gators offense will be. Taylor.
So you wondered why Florida, there's Antonio Callaway, who was high school teammates with Treon Harris and has had just a monster true freshman year. Why would they take the ball first? Well, here's your answer.
Apparently,
you know,
they thought they could do this.
This is an offensive line that has been so banged up and so young, and just like everybody else, they had 4 or 5 weeks off to get healthy. And this group's playing pretty well. This is a good front for Michigan. And right now, this young front that really struggled down the stretch of Florida playing pretty well.
This opening drive has already lasted 4 minutes and taken up 55 yards. Harris, double pump. Pressured out of the pocket. Smart throws it away at the end, so he didn't lose a yard.
That was a smart play.
Yes, it was. Wormley had a beat on him.
Wormley came in. Wormley just went off for about 5 minutes in an interview the other day about how disrespected he felt like they were because everyone was talking about how great Florida's defense was. This guy, 43, came to play, and they rotate. They call him 2 first-string defensive lines at Michigan. You mentioned Ryan Glasgow out, a starter. Mario Ojemudia out with an Achilles. 2 really good players that are out, so they've had to build a little more depth.
Florida trying to keep the drive alive. Harris again. Floats one for the end zone. Incomplete. A little contact at the end. No flag. DeMarcus Robinson was there. Jeremy Clark never found the football.
You know, Robinson, another guy who's committed to the NFL early, a junior, he short arms this a little bit. This is a nice throw by Harris. Harris can be a little inaccurate, but sometimes he drops dimes. This, to me, looked like a dime. Short-armed it a bit. Pretty good coverage there by Jeremy Clark, but if you're a guy saying, I want to go play in the NFL, I think you need to make that play.
Here is pre-dental student Neil McInnes, who hasn't kicked a field goal since high school. Austin Harden, the regular kicker who has been woeful, hurt himself. Now it's a fake. Ball's on the ground. The kicking game for Florida has been an abject disaster since day one.
But that's why they go for the fake. McInnes is a guy who blew his ACL out. He's walking around on a bad left leg. They have another former walk-on who's come back. So the fact that they ran a fake, I don't blame them. Just a little better defense.
Aerial coverage provided by Goodyear. Whether you're going for it from a few yards out or from miles away, go with the tire with superior performance. Goodyear, more driven. 0-0. Middle of the first quarter. Let's go back to that failed fake.
Well, we have been telling the story. It's been the story all year. Austin Harden, the normal kicker for Florida, who is struggling out. Neil McInnes, a walk-on, has a blown ACL. He'll be fine. He has a brace on. He could do no further damage. So Florida goes for the fake, and what an excellent job. And there is Neil McInnes, who was just a decoy there. But Royce Jenkins-Stone did a wonderful job, lined up in that A gap to the left of the center, blows it up, and Florida's lucky that that ball wasn't returned. It was caught in the air, could have been returned.
Smith, the tailback, cuts it off the left side and bowls his way out to the 36-yard line. Jake Rudock, thrown for more than 2,700 yards, had the 5th best passing season in Michigan history this year. He completed 64% of his throws. That's number 1 in the Big Ten. And in the last 3 games, he threw 11 touchdowns, only picked off twice.
He has been on fire in those last 5 games, completing 73% of his passes. Didn't get here until the summer. No coaching from this staff until training camp, so it took a little while to get comfortable.
Rudock with the fake, throws to Jake Butt, his All-American tight end, and Butt has a first down at the 45. And yes, there was a fullback in the formation. Homa plays fullback, also carries the ball. He is literally a traditional fullback as Jim Harbaugh runs an old-school offense. In fact, they have 7 tight ends that play.
And this is a good one in Jake Butt. And the good news from nice catch. Just a little off mark, goes out and gets it. And Butt spoke to Harbaugh about going to the NFL. They both decided he'd come back. So whoever the thrower is next year gets a pretty good one.
Drake Johnson checked into the ball game, and this pass is complete to Amara Darboh, who leads this club in both catches and yards. That's his 57th catch on the year. Rudock very accurate.
Well, it was, for Rudock at the end at Iowa, it was a bit of a strange deal. He started in last year's bowl game, struggled against Tennessee. C.J. Beathard came in and played pretty well. As they went to the offseason, it looked like kind of a 1A, 1B. Next thing you know, Rudock's transferring to Michigan. But this is a guy that when studying him at Iowa, I always liked him. Throws the ball really well, runs well enough.
Smith, what a run. That was outstanding. He had trouble with a handoff. He had to wait for the ball, so the defense was right on top of him. He just shrugged one guy off and went for it.
Well, Smith, who missed a little time and struggled with an ankle injury almost the second half of the season. But Brantley in his face. Brantley couldn't quite get his feet. But that ankle looks much more healthy, and if there's one thing this guy does is run through early contact. He is very good when there's a lot of bodies running around and getting positive yardage.
And he's a load at 5'11", 228. Great cut inside the 30, 25, still on his feet down to the 20. And this is against an exceptional SEC defense. Gain of 24.
Well, one of the guys who's putting down some tape for the NFL is the center Graham Glasgow of the Wolverine Glasgows. There are 3 brothers on the team. And Glasgow, a guy who this coaching staff and Tim Drevno, who's the offensive line coach and offensive coordinator, was in San Francisco and a very good one. They think he's a 2nd, 3rd round pick. And going up against Brantley and Bullard, 2 future NFL players, will be a big deal. That was a nice job getting up to the 2nd level linebacker and getting a hold of him.
Multiple formations. Rudock under pressure. Didn't have time to set his feet as Antonio Morrison was coming on a blitz. Tried to hit J.U. Chesson in the flat. Let's take a look at how the Michigan offensive line is preparing for the Florida defensive line, brought to you by Rain-X.
Florida very good up front. They're healthy for the first time all season, except for Alex McAllister, still out with that foot injury. He'll be going off to the NFL. And Michigan very good up front. Only 18 sacks allowed. And that key matchup we're talking about is Glasgow and Caleb Brantley, and also Bullard in there. We saw Brantley can make some noise when he gets going. So that's a real nice matchup of NFL future guys.
The co-defensive coordinators had seen enough. They decided they were going to blitz that time. Now back to the ground game with Drake Johnson. Keanu Neal had to make the stop.
Well, Drake Johnson is a fan favorite. He's a local guy out of right there in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Was playing great at the end of last season. Nice cut behind the block of the left guard, Ben Braden. But he's an explosive guy who blew out his knee right at the end of the season last year. Was really starting to look like a go-to back. Hasn't quite had the explosiveness come back. But, you know, a month off, some really good training. That can start to set you off into a good direction for 2016.
48 yards rushing so far for the Michigan backs. Smith. Power run inside the 5 to about the 4. It would be second and goal from there. Nick Washington, one of the safeties, came up to stop him. This Florida defense, 9th in the country, allowing only 16.5 points a game. And they have to be that good to keep their offense in the game.
Yeah. And as the bigger back comes out, this is, to me, second and third and goal are your throw, run, or run, throw downs. You kind of want to do one or the other. And this, to me, looks like an area where maybe you get a fake in. You've got an I formation. Jake Butt lined up to the left. This guy is 6'6". He can go up and get it. This looks like a throw down.
Darboh is out to the right, single coverage with Hargraves. They will go to the left. Greg Johnson, touchdown. Jalen Tabor couldn't stop him as he went to the corner. What a start for Michigan's offense.
And the heel quick.
Don't see that very often, do you?
What a great run. I mean, just blown up at the point of attack on the inside, but a wonderful block by the fullback, Joe Carriage. Holy cow. Johnson had to bounce around a lot of garbage, and Carriage stayed on his track. Give that fullback a ton of credit. He got a blow-up block that let the running back Johnson sneak in.
Kenny Allen for the point after. And with 5:54 to go in the first quarter, Michigan takes a 7-0 lead after a 73-yard drive that took 4:29 off the clock.
The Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl. Brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wings. Proud presenting sponsor of the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl. And the Quick Silver Card from Capital One. Earn unlimited 1.5% cash back. Every purchase, every day.
Beautiful facility here at the sold-out Florida Citrus Bowl. Later today on ESPN, your New Year's Day college football fix continues. 5 Eastern, number 6 Stanford takes on number 5 Iowa in the Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual. Then at 8:30, it's the All-State Sugar Bowl. Number 16 Oklahoma State, number 12 Ole Miss. Both games also streaming live on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app.
Well, we saw Clemson twice this year. We saw Michigan State. We saw Iowa. So we saw a lot of teams in and around.
Yes.
Iowa wasn't quite there with Clemson. I think Iowa was a really good. I know they gave up the 22-play drive to lose to Michigan State, but C.J. Beathard, when he's healthy, he's not going to be fully healthy with that groin injury, but when he's healthy, he's a dynamic quarterback. And I know everyone's kind of picking Stanford in that Rose Bowl, but I like them Hawkeyes.
Florida defense has to feel a little bruised after that opening drive.
You think? Yeah, that doesn't happen often to this level of defense.
No, sir.
That was,
Hargraves will bring it out from 5 yards deep. This kid can run. Takes it to the 25. Beautiful Orlando, Florida on New Year's Day. Glad you're with us. We'll be back in a moment.
High school, knock up here. High school. I will sign my.
Welcome back to the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl. Now for our Aflac trivia question. Who holds the Citrus Bowl record for most rushing yards in a game?
We've been dropping hints a little bit. My son is playing in this game.
Now that's a big hint.
I don't know. There's a lot of sons of really great players here.
It's 160 guys out there, aren't there?
Yeah. It's good math.
On Harris, standing at the 20, waiting on the snap. Lost it. Had to run with it, got back to the line of scrimmage, may have even gained a yard. Florida is not a team that can afford to be what they say behind the sticks.
Yeah. Low left snap. Trip Thurman in there. Cam Dillard's still out with a leg injury that's been bothering him all year. And Thurman, a senior who's played every single position trying to help this team out. We saw him have a couple struggles with snaps against Florida State and Alabama. You expect that. That's a tough one when you have to go run block that fast off to the left to get that accurately. And you can see now they're putting Harris underneath him.
This line gave up 43 sacks. That's the worst among any team in the Power 5 conference. And Michigan can rush the passer. Can't find anybody. Finally pushed out of bounds. Bolden, who's been very active, chased him all the way to the sideline, pushed him out. Treon Harris just had nowhere to go.
And that's Antonio Riles, a guard who had played some defensive tackle, coming back to play some guard. He needs to take off. He should put his foot in the ground and take off. Nobody's open there.
Harris, quick tempo. Throws short. They're not going to get enough. Great tackle by Jared Wilson. As Kelvin Taylor had the ball in the flat, couldn't get away.
Flag down.
Illegal substitution. Defense. 5-yard penalty. Still third down.
Big break here for Florida. That's a fourth down. That's a punt. You're putting your offense right back on the field against a defense that you pushed around a little bit. And because they went tempo, Michigan couldn't figure it out. They totally caught him by surprise.
They might have had 15 or 16.
Good strategy by Florida, and a big break now. You get that third down over again.
And you're a little closer.
Now, you talked about Harris and his accuracy. The tough part is on 3rd and 3, if you're going to throw it, it's a slant or something like that, and it can be in traffic. So I suspect this will be some type of run. As Jordan Cronkrite, the freshman you mentioned, with Jordan Scarlett suspended, comes in a little surprised that Taylor would be out if you're going to run a tailback run. He's the guy who's got the lather and kind of playing for everything here.
And they do not throw to him very often. Coming into this game, only 17 receptions in 12 games. Harris, again, trying to get outside to Cronkrite, and he's got the first down and more to midfield. Chased out of bounds by the middle linebacker, Desmond Morgan.
Yeah, Cronkrite clearly came in for the throw, but he's a guy who gets runs, so it's not like they tipped it off, but he's a guy who had a run and a catch touchdown against South Carolina. Excellent throw by Harris. Even with someone in his face, he put it right on Cronkrite's hip, and what a big penalty. The hurry up by Florida gets the penalty, makes it 3rd and 3. Nice call by Doug Nussmeier, the offensive coordinator, and able to keep Florida's defense off the field. You mentioned them wilting at the end of the season. Florida's offense only had 16 minutes of possession in that SEC championship game. It's tough to play defense if your offense doesn't keep the ball, and they're doing it a bit more here.
Looked like Michigan jumped. Number 50, Tom Strobel, may have been offside.
Offside. Defense. Number 50. 5-yard penalty. First down.
So that moves the ball into Michigan territory at the 48.
We don't want to help an offense that is, by the end of the season, having trouble getting out of its own way with some of the injuries. Of course, Will Greer, who was a starting quarterback, was suspended in October.
Harris with time. Throws to the wide open Callaway. Looked like a zone. They found a hole in it.
And this offensive line, Riles comes in there, starting to get some depth. They held up. That took forever. That is a long across the field route. I mentioned Callaway is a former high school teammate of Harris. Imagine how many times they've thrown that. And there's just no way that the running back, or excuse me, the linebacker Ben Gideon is ever going to keep up with Callaway across the field.
Michigan brings 5. They don't get there, and Harris throws to the goal line. Just short. Almost got in. Chris Thompson, one of their fastest receiver, caught a nice throw, and Jordan Lewis made the tackle at the 1.
Treon Harris looks like a whole different guy than we saw against Florida State and even against South Carolina. This is a terrific throw right on the money. That ball, let's see if that ball comes out before he's down. Knee down. No, they'll review it. And Florida was trying to go fast. That looked to me like Thompson's.
Ball was short of the goal line. Previous play is under review.
Well, I think it's under review for. No, it doesn't look like it's moving to me. It looks like his left hand still has the ball. I'm not sure they're going to have enough to overturn it.
They'll look at it. We'll step away. Back after this. The call is going to stand because this is rather conclusive evidence that the receiver's knee is down before the ball comes out.
You know, I mean, half a step the other way, maybe not. But Thompson with a good and a nice catch on a nice throw by Treon Harris. And we should mention Jabril Peppers, second-team All-American, safety corner, running back, wide receiver, not playing. He had a hand injury at the end of the season. He did warm up. We've been watching to see if he'd come in. We finally found him. He's got everything draped over. We finally found him on the sideline, so he is obviously not going to play.
Florida came out in an unbalanced line. The referees slowed down the play. Let's see if they'll come out in the same formation. They do. Now they'll shift back to a more traditional formation. Taylor is the tailback. Taylor on the toss. And he's going to lose 2. They just went right through the blockers.
Well, they were Florida was trying to get an advantage on the edge, but when they shifted all of those bodies over there, including a couple of defensive players, C.C. Jefferson, a true freshman defensive end in there, Michigan just wasn't buying it. That looked a little unfair to the running back, frankly.
Bolden, who leads this team in tackles and was a quarterfinalist for the Lott Trophy, has been in on a ton of stops already. Fake to Taylor. Harris under pressure. Just throws it away. Got out of the tackle box and threw it past the line of scrimmage. Here's Jerry Punch.
And by the way, this is when they like to use their big tight end. You heard Ed mention Jake McGee, the big redshirt senior, but he will not play today. I have been told that McGee has a hamstring and will be out, and that's certainly when they miss his presence down here on the goal line with a short pass game.
Jerry, he made a big difference for them. Transferred from Virginia a year ago, had to sit out. Played very, very well this year. 3rd and goal. Remember their kicking problems. If they don't make it, they may go for it instead of try a field goal.
Oh, I think they're absolutely going for it.
Direct snap to Taylor. Taylor hands off to Callaway, and Callaway tosses it to the quarterback, Harris. Tinkers to Evers to Chance.
You're kidding me.
That's what 2 weeks of bowl practice will do for you.
Well, those are 2 high school teammates. How many times do you think these are guys that grew up playing backyard football together and everything else? Treon Harris is going to catch an underhanded toss from Antonio Callaway, and someone needs to ask them after the game how many times they've done that. As pals growing up, playing high school ball together. But why get fancy? That's all it took.
The point after is good for Neil McInnes. The dental student ties it at 7.
Well, it's the reverse toss. Really good fake by Treon Harris. They completely caught the outside linebacker Desmond Morgan to that side. He looked away as Treon Harris was walking back to get another call. Completely lost contain. You can see 3 trailing there with his head rocked back, but a terrific fake by Harris and a wonderful underhand toss. You should underhand toss this to the studio.
Tied at 7, and I do throw an underhand toss to Cassidy Hubbard.
SportsCenter right now brought to you by Great Clips. Ohio State off to a fast start against Notre Dame on ESPN. J.T. Barrett to Michael Thomas. Buckeyes up 14-0 in the first, but some bad news for Ohio State. Joey Bosa has been ejected from the game. On ESPN2, Tennessee up 17-6.
Cassidy, thanks very much. It's a tough way for Joey Bosa's season to end, isn't it? Florida, not bad on offense. 2 drives, 125 yards, 90 yards coming passing.
Jim McElwain and his staff, Doug Nussmeier, these guys have been around the game a long time. They have guys like Callaway, a true freshman who is just apparently a wonderful teammate, great work ethic. And they found new ways to get those guys involved. An interesting spring. Treon Harris, of course, will be in the mix to win back the starting job. Will Greer, who was suspended, has chosen to transfer. So he'll have to sit out a season and a half before he's able to play again because of the transfer rule and the suspension that goes into November of whatever season he's eligible.
Dallas Stubbs, another walk-on, comes on and kicks the ball out of bounds. DirecTV takes you inside the drive as we take a look at that last touchdown.
Well, this is a very good defensive front and a very good offensive line. So a nice battle, this time won by the offensive line. Ben Braden getting the edge there. And then just a wonderful cut by Drake Johnson, but a huge hole. And this block by a fullback Carriage as he had to outrun. He had to jump around a bunch of wash from inside, and Carriage lays a terrific block so Johnson can finish it.
Jim Harbaugh with a 9-3 record his first year. Turned around Stanford, then had a brilliant run with the San Francisco 49ers. Bizarrely parted ways with them. How they couldn't come to an agreement, nobody's really sure. Drive right up the middle for Smith, and we go to Dr. Jerry Punch.
Hey, guys, Michigan's offensive coaches said in preparing for this Florida defense, they used the LSU Florida film. Why? Because LSU's offense is very similar to Michigan's offense, and it's a two-back full power. Although they don't have a Leonard Fournette, they said the ability of LSU to run the ball inside gave them a lot of clues of what they could do up front with their blocking schemes to run the ball inside against what has been typically a very tough Gator front.
Jerry, they picked great tape to look at because they executed exceptionally well on the first drive. Complete pass to the sideline. J.U. Chesson, and Chesson dives across midfield. Speed, quickness, a lot of things going for that young man. Brian Poole took him out of bounds.
Got a flag down behind Chesson. Chesson, a guy who's in his fourth year but will come back. Has been on a tear.
Holding. Offense. Number 9. 10-yard penalty. Second down.
That's Grant Perry, the slot receiver, trying to throw a block held instead. Yeah, they really get good news. Chesson's coming back. Jake Butt's coming back. Not often an All-American returns for his final season.
You lose Rudock, but remember that they have the Houston transfer. John O'Corn will be eligible. He's a guy who started threw for 3,100 yards back in 2013, was beat out by Greg Ward last year and transferred. So they'll have a guy with some ability. Of course, Wilton Spate, the backup, got a bunch of time, especially in that Minnesota game. So a nice battle for the spring quarterback job at Michigan.
Smith on the draw on 2nd and 10. Room to run for Smith. Maybe a little more dancing than we have seen him do earlier in this game.
Well, you know, these guys didn't get to celebrate New Year's Eve last night. They did not get to get their groove on, Mike. So Smith figured he'd do it here. Did you get your groove on?
I don't even know what that means.
The center, Glasgow, though, he's gone to the where he holds the snap. We were just watching his hand. When he's shotgun snapping, he kind of holds it upside down and kind of rugby style flips it. But this will be a more traditional laces up.
3rd and 2. Rudock drops back, throws wide, incomplete. Darboh was looking for a flag, didn't get it. And Michigan's thinking about it.
No, I think Darboh was looking for a ball that he well. Harbaugh thinks that someone grabbed someone's head, obviously.
Jim is very animated on the sideline, isn't he?
It didn't look to me like there was that much contact with Darboh. So maybe he was.
Jerry Punch, what do you have?
Yeah, Blake O'Neal, the starting punter, is injured. We just was told prior to the game that Kenny Allen would do the kicking duty. So now Allen in as a backup will get his first punt of the game.
And Jerry O'Neal had done a really good job. Another one of those Australian kickers. Look at this. Just bombs one down the field. Kenny Allen said, I told you I should have been punting all year. Tomorrow afternoon, the college football bowl season continues on ESPN. First at noon Eastern, Penn State and Georgia in the Tax Slayer Bowl in Jacksonville. Then at 3:20, Kansas State against Arkansas in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. Both games streaming live on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app. It was funny yesterday. I was watching a game on my iPad going to our meeting. I got in the elevator and somebody said, "What's that?" And I said, "That's the game on ESPN." You can see that on your iPad. I said, "Yeah, it's a brave new world."
Yeah, we were watching Clemson, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
what an
amazing.
impressive game by Clemson.
Wasn't it?
But more impressive by Alabama.
That's a machine there.
Well, the improvement on offense by Alabama, I saw them, we studied them mid-season as we were doing Arkansas and Mississippi State. The improvement on offense was extraordinary, what I saw last night.
Treon Harris, that's a called quarterback draw. Pick up about 4. And that's going to be the last play of the first quarter of the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl. We'll continue after this message and a word from our ABC station.
Back in Orlando, Florida, all tied up here at the Florida Citrus Bowl. Antonio Callaway became the first Florida wide receiver to throw a touchdown pass since 2006 when Andre Caldwell did it in the SEC title game. And folks, in the 5 times when a Gator receiver's won a touchdown pass since 1996, the Gators have won all 5 football games. Mike?
All right, Jerry, thanks very much. Nice nugget. Gators will take over from the 25. Harris. This is good, or actually a lot better than we've seen them all year long. Taylor.
Well, this was
a couple.
With Treon Harris at quarterback, because when Will Greer was in there, this was
good.
Yeah, they were really good. Greer was at 64% completion. He tore up Ole Miss just a few weeks after they beat Alabama. And as I mentioned, Greer deciding to, he was suspended for performance-enhancing drugs for a year, and very shockingly decided he was going to transfer. The coaches, Jim McElwain, dealt with it very gracefully and said they'd give him a full release and help him. But I think it shocked a lot of people thinking that Greer would not come back. And now with the transfer having to sit out next season and then into November of 2017 before he's going to be eligible.
Blitz coming. Harris throws underneath. Callaway first down and more. Nice composure by Harris. Knew everybody was going to be in his face, but knew he had a relief valve over in the right flat leg.
Harris is a guy who won a ton of ball games at the high school level. Booker T. Washington High School in Miami. So he's a gamer and he throws the ball well, but what they've been working on is just see it, throw it. See it, throw it. Sometimes he's got that little moment of hesitation. If he doesn't hesitate, he's got a pretty good arm.
Bad snap again. Harris able to corral it. Plenty of time. Throwing the post, dropped. Perfect throw to Keontae Lewis. I mean, perfect.
Well, we saw the safety coming over the top. That's DeAndre Goolsby. And that ball is absolutely dropped into his arms. And Goolsby saw the safety, Delano Hall. And Hall saw the footsteps, and that's a tough one.
That was Goolsby and not Lewis.
That's a bummer for Goolsby, though. Good throw.
Another bad snap. Harris picks it up, in trouble. Just throws it sideways out of bounds. That should be intentional grounding. Taco Charlton was pressuring him.
The quarterback intended to throw the ball forward and it slipped out of his hands. It is a legal incomplete pass.
That can, you know what? I absolutely love that we just got that explanation, because this for all the world will look like intentional grounding. But this ACC officials, I don't know.
Let's put it this way. You're right. The call was excellent.
But even if it didn't slip, it probably doesn't go beyond the line of scrimmage. I mean, Dwayne Height, the referee from the ACC, gave the benefit of the doubt there. I think that may have been grounded. I like the explanation. Not sure I'd buy it.
Flanker screen. Again, Callaway. It was a great explanation, not so much a great call, I thought.
Well, But ultimately, 4th down now, so no harm, no foul. It was still good pressure by Michigan defensively. Of course, you get the intentional grounding if you get basically the result of the sack, the loss of down and the yardage. So Greg Madison's defense holding up, and what a nice job Greg Madison has done helping the transition of this staff and the Brady Hoke group with really good players, good attitude in the locker room. Hoke left this place pretty well stocked for this new staff to come in, especially on defense.
Amara Darboh is deep. Jabril Peppers is their punt returner. Nobody else on this roster had a punt return all year long. They still don't. They'll start from the 20 when we come back to Orlando. Now the answer to our Aflac trivia question: who holds the Citrus Bowl record for most rushing yards in a game? Sweet Fred Taylor. 1998, he ran for 234 yards against the Nittany Lions of Penn State 18 years ago. He ran it 43 times in that game as Florida beat Penn State 21-6. Had a great college career, great pro career. The Jacksonville Jaguars, when Mark Brunell was their quarterback, they had Jimmy Smith at wide receiver, Tony Baselli at left tackle. They were loaded.
Son Kelvin, almost to 1,000, has said he's going to the NFL after this season. Probably a wise choice. The 2016 draft class of running backs looks like it might be pretty top-heavy, so this might be good timing for the young Taylor.
Fake to Smith. Rudolph throws, and off the hands of his All-American tight end, Jake Butt.
Not sure Marcus Mays maybe didn't get a hand in there. Safety.
Could have.
Mays, a guy with plenty of NFL ability, has not decided if he'll be coming back. I suspect he will. Well, that might be a drop. That might be a drop there.
Mays and Neal are headhunting safeties, and these corners, Hargraves and Tabor, what a combo.
It's been the defensive front that's been being pushed around a bit, though, here for Florida, which is shocking.
Smith had his helmet ripped off, and there comes the flag.
And that's John Bullard, who looked like he was completely unblocked. Bullard, a guy who battled arm issues.
Personal foul, face mask, defense, 15-yard penalty, first down.
Now Smith would not have to come out of the game for his helmet coming off if he didn't want to or have to. Now you can't see there the hand on the face mask, but right there clearly Bullard does enough to pull that off. And let's hope that Smith is okay. Sometimes that can rake up your face a little bit. Obviously a mistake made by Bullard after a really nice play.
Helmets fit a lot looser than they used to. In the old days, if somebody did that, your nose went with it.
As long as you have two holes, you don't really need a nose. As long as you can breathe.
Homa is the tailback. They have two fullbacks in this formation. And Homa will only get back in the line of scrimmage because Bullard is there. Maybe the best run-stopping defensive tackle in the game.
And John Bullard, when we were studying him, he just right now, he's kind of putting on an unblockable show. Just goes right into the face of Kyle Callis. Callis, who's coming down to try to get an angle block on him. Bullard, he's not tall, but he's got long arms, terrific leverage, a big, thick lower body. This guy's going to look awesome to NFL scouts. Both productivity, able to hold the point. He's a good pass rusher. Looks a little healthier now. He can be a force.
He could have easily come out a year ago in the draft. Out in the flat, and not much there for Grant Perry. Taken down by Jalen Tabor. It was funny. On a lot of the message boards, Florida fans were saying, yeah, Vernon Hargraves is a terrific corner. He is an All-American. But number 31, Jalen Tabor, is better than he is. One of the guys who said it was Jalen Tabor. He said, I like me over anybody in the country.
Well, Hargraves likes him too. Said he could, but they said from the minute this second-year player got on, the only thing faster than his legs was his mouth. He is not afraid of telling you how good he is, but both of these guys, very special players.
If you can back it up.
You can still hit mute occasionally.
Ruda. First down and more. J.U. Chesson into Florida territory. Gain of 25. Hargraves and May had to stop it.
Well, talking about speed, Michigan has guys who can run too. Chesson runs a 10-300 meters. Really getting a nice feel for the game. The team's overall MVP, of course, he had the great catch at the end against Indiana to send it in overtime for that big win. He's been surging upwards.
Smith shakes 2 tackles and powers forward for a couple of yards. Could have been -1. Instead he got +2.
He has a real unique ability to not be tackled in tight spaces. He's not the most explosive guy. He's got good cutting ability, not the Dalvin Cook kind of cutter, but he's a guy in this type of offense where you're going to grind it a little bit. In the NFL, you always talked about efficient runs. 3-4 yards if you get called on first down is an efficient run.
Hey, if you want to have some fun, watch number 84. He's the second tight end on the near side. 275 pounds. He can run. Smith breaks it down to the 31-yard line.
We've been talking a little bit about Tim Drevno, the offensive coordinator and offensive line coach for Michigan. He's a guy with a very bright future, has head coach aspirations. He's been with Jim Harbaugh on and off, mostly on, since the University of San Diego days. He was left over on the staff when Harbaugh took over, and he knew right away he had a rock-solid star offensive line coach and offensive mind, and has had him around almost ever since, except for last season when Drevno spent a year at USC.
Can't find anybody and throws it away. Rudock wanted to throw quickly, but Brian Cox Jr. got in his face.
Well, everybody's covered, and this is a yeah, there's just nobody home. Came late underneath the Chesson, but this is a high school teammate sacking a high school teammate. Well, they've got to be careful about that. Jim Harbaugh came out. Jared Davis there. That was just a little extra, and I was wondering why Harbaugh came out yelling so much. But Davis has got to be careful.
Forearm to the back of the head.
I'm really surprised that wasn't called, and I understand why Harbaugh's mad. That's not necessary.
4-man rush. Rudock going deep. Chesson is by himself. Somebody blew a coverage in the Florida secondary. Marcus May and Vernon Hargraves talking to each other. One or both blew it. Chesson probably hasn't been that wide open since he was a freshman in high school.
Well, this is the side of the coverage you're going to watch. Hargraves, no reason to jump that. There's no reason to jump that, especially when the receiver is breaking to the outside. If the receiver, if you were pushing him to the inside expecting safety help, then yeah, you'd let him go. But when he's going to your outside shoulder, there's no one to the outside when you're the corner. So Hargraves, he saw a ghost. He was trying to jump something and go make a play.
A rare mistake by the All-American corner, and it cost them the lead here in the Citrus Bowl.
Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl, brought to you by Rain-X Wiper Blades. Outsmart the elements. And Nissan, premier partner of the Heisman Trophy.
The Michigan pep rally yesterday at the Orlando Eye, that big Ferris wheel that just terrifies me. Tomorrow night on ESPN, catch more bowl action as number 15 Oregon takes on 11th-ranked TCU in the Valero Alamo Bowl at 6:45. Then at 10:15, the Motel 6 Cactus Bowl matches up West Virginia and Arizona State.
Of course, Trevon Boykin suspended for that bowl game against Oregon for allegedly hitting a police officer. Got to think Oregon. I like Oregon big in that game. We saw them. I'm not sure with Vernon Adams at quarterback down the stretch healthy. I'm not sure they weren't one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country.
Couldn't agree more. I don't know if they'd have lost anything with him playing quarterback.
They didn't once he was healthy. They went on a 7-game stretch.
Callaway, a yard deep. He'll bring it out. Got some room on this side. Cuts it back the other way. Callaway. Special teams is critical for Florida's chances today, and Callaway gives them a great return to get to the 39.
I think the group that had the biggest struggles this year may have been the offensive line. So they're starting to get a little help, moving some guys around. This is Seontae Lewis, a good young tight end, getting an excellent block as he comes across the formation, giving a good pocket for Harris to find Callaway. And then this is just the 4 offensive linemen. You've got a true freshman right tackle, a true freshman right guard, Antonio Riles in there at left guard, and in there getting some reps, not in there now, but a guy who had been playing some defense. But this group came to play. They got healthier. They've got some young guys with some talent, and that month does sometimes make a big difference.
Harris on a fake to Taylor. Harris throws. Robinson making an appearance, grabs the catch, goes into Michigan territory.
Robinson, of course, a very, very quick guy. Suspended for the Florida State game for what Jim McElwain said was making a poor choice. That's always what Coach McElwain says. They chose not to play. Had to be voted by his teammates to be able to play in the SEC Championship. Has since decided to declare for the NFL. I think he'll test out well. You know, we'll see the off-field stuff, how that's looked at.
Taylor back to Harris. And Harris will run with it. Treon Harris with room. Still on his feet to the 26-yard line. Royce Jenkins Stone had to catch him from behind. It's a gain of 20.
And Harris did a brilliant thing here. This was another flip back. McElwain and Nussmeier pulling out all the stops here. But there's nobody open. Right now, there's nobody open, so what does he do? He takes off. That was just brilliant. Don't force it. You always think, oh, I'm going to turn around and someone's going to be wide open, and they're not. And Harris does a good job of reading that. You can see some of his open field ability. This guy can make people look a little silly once he's bouncing around.
First down, Gators at the 26. Taylor. Good hard run by Fred Taylor. Picks up 4.
Boy, that'd be amazing if that was Fred Taylor carrying it. You mean Kelvin, his son. I knew you were going to slip.
Yeah, if Fred was carrying it, we'd have a story.
Well, you covered Fred enough on those NFL Sunday nights, and they both were 21. So, but Kelvin Taylor, I believe now, he's got 1 yard to 1,000, 999. He'd obviously like to leave as a 1,000-yard rusher if it's going to be your last day.
Like to add to his touchdown total, too, because he's tied with his dad for 3rd all-time. Harris over the middle on the post, incomplete. Shannon Stribling, nice defense there.
Stribling, a guy who missed some time early in the year with some injury issues. But this ball looks just a little low.
Boy, he had a
Whoa, but Stribling closed that.
Yes, he did.
You maybe put a little air and leave that in, but Stribling, he closed that and played the ball. You know, that's one of those where I play the man of the ball. He's got that left shoulder wrapped up. Here you are, the 3rd down without really, I think, much chance of a field goal at all. Don't need it all here if you're Florida. Maybe a quarterback draw.
Taylor is the running back. Gets it from Harris. And Taylor may have enough for a first down. Good hard run by Kelvin Taylor.
Well, this offensive line for Florida just looks like a different group than we saw at the end of the year. They really just couldn't hold up. They were all banged up. Bunch of guys hurt up front. Taylor now has 1,004, excuse me.
Good for him.
Yeah. But this offensive line giving him a little bit more room. A bunch of young guys up there. We mentioned Mason Halter, the usual right tackle, is suspended. He's out. So you've got a true freshman in Johnson, who's a bit overwhelmed at times in that SEC championship game. Doesn't look so today.
Harris under pressure. Floats it for the end zone. It's up for grabs, and it's intercepted. And it's another one of those awful mistakes that Harris has been prone to this year. Just to throw it up when there are two, almost three defenders in position to pick it up.
Yeah, and if you're Jim McElwain, you just want to be calm. The backup is a transfer wide receiver and quarterback because of all the injuries that guys transferring. So don't want to beat him up too much, but yeah, you certainly don't want to make that throw.
Welcome back to the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl, where Michigan has a 14-7 lead, all part of Capital One Bowl Mania. And our Coke Zero halftime report will be an extravaganza from the Rose Bowl. Reese, Kirk, and Desmond. And here from the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl, Chris Cotter, Butch Davis, Joey Galloway will be on the field.
Well, we needed balanced. We needed a Michigan wide receiver on one set and an Ohio State wide receiver on the other, so we nailed that.
Smith, the deep man in the eye. They fake it to him. A good decision by Rudolph just to throw it into the ground. It was very, very well covered.
You know, that throw by Treon Harris into the end zone, it reminded me of the Michigan State-Alabama last night. At the end of the half, when Connor Cook looked to the one side and just threw it right to that side. Yeah. And that intercept, you could just see, like, it's a little different here today. Kind of felt that way.
Smith hit near the line of scrimmage, powers his way for about 5 yards.
And, the helmet off for Smith with no penalty, so he'll have to come out. And nice consolation. Just throw it away. Coach Sandwich makes sandwiches and soup in his office, so guys come in and talk to him about things other than football. He really makes a nice connection with his players. They know that he cares for them on and off the field. That was a nice exchange. He's your guy.
Yes, he is.
I mean, you're going to a backup, basically wide receiver in Josh Grady if he doesn't get it going. So
for McElwain, it took him only 3 years to turn around a Colorado State program that had been down forever. And everyone believes he'll do a great job at Florida. Rudolph floats it. Great catch. Flag is down at the 36-yard line. Chesson tracking it, diving, and making the grab.
Chesson's starting to look like a guy who's going to be pretty special next year. And they'll get quarterback play. If Jim Harbaugh's the coach, they'll figure out somebody who can get it to these guys.
Holding on the defense, number 24. That penalty's declined. Result of the play. First down.
His teammates picked Chesson as the MVP of this ball club.
6'3", runs a sub-10 400 meters, and that's good route running and a terrific throw. I mean, the coverage was pretty spot on as well by Brian Poole, who's really had a nice season for Florida, but Chesson seems to have good control.
That's great coverage for a linebacker right there. Blitz coming. They timed it beautifully, but they're not going to catch Wayne Johnson. Or Drake Johnson as he gets to the outside. The timing of the Florida blitz was impeccable, but they left one gap and he found it.
Well, Antonio Morrison was trying to time this out. And he goes to the right of the center. Glasgow nails him, knocks him way off his target where he was trying to run through. Nice job by Glasgow, but because the other linebacker, Davis, just ran right up into the line of scrimmage, both linebackers took themselves out of the play.
First down to Florida, 46. Smith grabbed and ridden down by Jared Davis.
Well, this Florida defense now rotating some of the defensive linemen out. This was a group that when the offense was struggling down the stretch against Florida State and Alabama, they just didn't hold up at the end. I don't know who could have. However, this front group, that's Jeff Collins, who came in from Mississippi State, actually kept the language that the previous staff, Will Muschamp and his staff, had, so that the defensive guys could go faster and learn faster in spring. He learned their language instead of the other way around. It's kind of interesting.
And very unselfish. Perry is open. Boy, was he open. And there have been some breakdowns in this Gator secondary, which is loaded with all-star players.
Yeah, that time it was Brian Poole, the nickelback, who seemed to be on the side and not on the coverage. Maybe he was expecting some help. Making sure that that foot was down. And this young man, Grant Perry, a true freshman, his confidence has grown and grown and grown all year. Gets both of them down. That worked in the NFL. But this is a guy that clearly has some ability, and they've been able to kind of get him going a bit more down the stretch. Now a starting receiver instead of just a backup.
Homa, who is normally the fullback, now the tailback behind Carriage. And the big guy rumbles off the left side. Sione Homa.
He came into this year with 0 carries. He was only a fullback. And they didn't use the fullback much under the previous regime, and they realized this guy can run. He's fast enough. He has good eyes, and of course, at 243 pounds and some power, he's a pretty good option.
And they've got 248-pound Carriage in front of him as the blocking fullback.
With those two big guys, why not a little play action here? See if you can't find Butt or A.J. Williams, one of your tight ends, in the end zone.
Butt's on the left side, Williams on the right. Homa makes one man miss and then lowers his shoulder and burrows to the 9. Caleb Brantley whiffed on the big guy.
It's amazing. You would think if you tuned in and you saw a fullback lined up a tailback that he wouldn't be able to do this. That's a sidestep on a future NFL lineman. You can see
Look at Brantley.
What am I doing?
The guy's huge. How did I miss him?
Yeah. He's still shaking his head going, wait a minute, that guy's 250. How did I not get him? Because he's pretty gifted, that's why.
First and goal for Michigan. The clock works its way toward 2 minutes. Johnson out in the flat. Drilled out of bounds by the middle linebacker Antonio Morrison, who is a guy we talked about earlier this year. He had a severe knee injury last season. Should have sat out this year, but worked and worked and worked relentlessly to get back in uniform and to play, and his teammates just love him for it.
They figured he would be healthy by week 4, 5, or 6. Somewhere in there he'd be full speed. He was full go right at the start of camp. Became a really good leader. You know, changeover of coaches. He became a good leader in there and has a really bright future.
Chesson goes in motion. Johnson gets the handoff. Johnson inside the 3. If nothing else, Michigan is exhausting any Florida chance to get the ball back to end this half.
Well, they've got 3 timeouts. I'm not sure if you're Florida, you'd want to use them quite yet. You do with the 3 timeouts. It gives you so many options on offense. So you should have something left unless somehow a first down were given for a defensive penalty. But I wouldn't suspect anything but a run here. I know they're in a shotgun formation, but if I'm Florida, I'm watching for some maybe delayed handoff to Johnson.
The veteran Rudock is going to use the timeout. Can't put him in your pocket. You might as well use it if you need it, and he did with 1:09 left, first half, 3rd and goal, Michigan. Rose Bowl, just a beautiful setting out there in California. Stanford, Iowa coming up at 5 o'clock on ESPN with the Rose Bowl game. It never looked to me like you could put 100,000 people in there. It looked more like 60, but you can. And a sellout crowd here at the Citrus Bowl watching Michigan and Florida.
And now what you do now, because Michigan ran off some time before taking that timeout. If Michigan does not score here and they're going to go for the field goal for Florida, then you certainly have to take your timeout. I didn't mind them not taking it before with the 3 timeouts, but if Michigan doesn't score here and you're Florida, I think you got to take it before the field goal attempt, if that's in fact what Harbaugh's going to do, is field goal instead of go for it.
Send 2 wide receivers to the near side, Darboh and Chesson. Rudock with time and throws intended for Jake Butt. He was double covered. Nice job by Tabor and Jared Davis,
and
the linebacker, to get back there to make it a double coverage
and
situation.
Tabor was all over Butt. When you're tight like this, you've got to be on him. Look at the hands. He actually pushed him back just a touch. Those hands nice and low, and that's what everyone's talking about with Tabor. But the incomplete pass now saves Florida from having to take the timeout. So they should have good time and 3 timeouts left.
Kenny Allen with a 21-shot or 21-yard chip shot field goal and knocks it through. The stage now set for the college football playoff national championship game presented by AT&T. Heisman Trophy winner Derrick Henry carries the Crimson Tide as they face off against Deshaun Watson and the undefeated Clemson Tigers. Tune in Monday, January 11th at 8:30 on ESPN, as well as streaming live on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app. I think he's the best quarterback in college football.
I do too. However, he's not going to be able to run like he did, and that really was the key. When they needed a run game, they have a good, tough run game in Gallman, but when they need to run, it's on him, and I don't think he's going to have the same space that he's had forever against Alabama.
Based on what you see watching Alabama's defense, nobody has any space.
Yeah, and for me, the most impressive thing was the growth of that Alabama offense. I thought Clemson was clearly the #1 team. I thought they're going to win. They're going to win it out. But after what I saw Alabama did last night and their improvement on offense, their skill set that's grown up on offense, I like Alabama in that game now.
I still think Clemson is the most balanced, complete team I have seen all year long.
Played much better.
And they keep defying everybody's. I mean, a lot of people thought Oklahoma should have beaten them. They were not going to lose to Oklahoma.
The bounce back Watson had to come back, get the ball back at the beginning of the second half after making a mistake at the end of the first to get the touchdown. That was pretty telling.
They need a big play here. Callaway trying to get it for him on the kick return. Fights for yardage. He gets out to the 23. Now, if you're the Gators, I don't know that you I don't know that you want to make a mistake down here, do you?
It's a bowl game, and you've got to just let guys play. I think just keeping it close to the vest right now. Why would you do that? You got your 3 timeouts. You've got a guy who's going to at least compete for the starting job in Treon Harris for next year. Who knows if he doesn't improve, so why not give him a shot with 54 seconds against a very quality defense?
And you will kick off to start the third quarter.
So you're thinking they should take a knee. I'm saying let's let it rip.
Harris hands it off. Cronkrite. And usually in this situation, that first play, whatever they do, dictates what happens.
But I think, why not? Let's put the foot on the gas. Get things going. This is, you go through the bowl practice, both McElwain and Harbaugh, like my old coach Don James. First couple of weeks is just training camp, and then you get a week of prep. So you've got all these guys really geared up as well as they can be. They're playing as well and as healthy as they've been since training camp. Let them get some reps.
4-man rush. They collapse the pocket. And Harris trying to get to the sticks, and it looked like he did. Our aerial coverage provided by Goodyear. Whether you're going for it from a few yards out or from miles away, go with the tire with superior performance. Goodyear, more driven.
Now with Harris going out of bounds, you still have those 3 timeouts. What you want to do, though, if you're going to get a run or you get something where everyone is scattered and it's going to take 10 to 20 seconds to get a play, you got to use one of those timeouts. You can't waste that many plays off the clock. You've got more timeouts than clock, so to speak.
Michigan sticks with its 4-man rush. And pressure again. Harris just has to chuck it.
I'm not sure he was out of the pocket, and I don't see a receiver to that side.
They're talking about it.
Going to talk about it.
There's the flag.
Yeah. And boy, Willie Henry has been unblockable the last 2 plays. Clearly did not get outside the right tackle, the so-called tackle box.
That's pretty easy to call now, and quarterbacks have to be more aware. If you try to get away with one, it's very rare that you can.
The outcome is the exact same as a sack. And so I would argue throw it away and don't get hit as hard. It is. If he wouldn't have thrown that away, he gets sacked. It would still be second down and where we are because it's a spot foul, loss of down. So I don't know. I'd rather throw it away and not get hit as hard.
That's an excellent point. 33 seconds left.
Willie,
not sure what Coach McElwain is saying.
But Willie Henry, another one of those veteran defensive But they better find where 69 is.
There's a 10-second runoff because of that penalty on the Gators.
Because you were inside a minute.
Draw play. Very conservative call that you might expect from Wright.
If I'm Michigan, I'd think about a timeout. Why not make Florida? Yeah, why not make Florida punt the ball? You don't have Jabril Peppers, who's, you know, the guy who would be able, you'd want back there to take it to the house. He's got the hand injury, but you can go for a block. There's Peppers. But you could go for a block and everything else. So
I'm surprised.
Good timeout.
I'm surprised, Ed, that it's not in the playbook in these situations that you just go for the block. How's it going to hurt you?
Yeah, well, if you had a guy like Peppers, I would say, well, why wouldn't you set up a return? I mean, he's world-class speed. But, yeah, this is something where when you get Florida to punt here, you can put 11 up there. Absolutely.
I'd leave one back.
But you know, well, here's the thing: if Florida gets a bad punt off, you get it at midfield. Rudock has plenty of arm throwing in the end zone, so you even have a shot where you could get good field position and 50, 60-yard throw for a last effort. And I love this. I think some coaches will, let's just get to half. Play every play. I mean, if you're Michigan, you know how important a punt can be. Think back to the Michigan State game. So always play the next play if you can.
Taylor comes back in. They'll give him the ball on a straight handoff, and Taylor going to have a first down. So the punt issue is never going to come up.
And now you get a Hail Mary if you're Florida. You're at midfield with 4 seconds. Treon Harris has plenty of arm, and Michigan has to be kicking itself now.
How quickly this situation turns.
Just a missed tackle by Ben Gideon. And now, play the next play. Florida's going to get one shot. Give Greg Madison, you know, with the changeover, whenever there's a changeover. Of course, Michigan went from Brady Hoke to Jim Harbaugh. But give Greg Madison and the staff that was here before a lot of credit. This was a top 10 defense last year. It's a top 10 defense this year. And I would argue last year's team, with a healthy and good quarterback play consistently, this is a team that probably wins 10 or 11 games. And the coaches here have talked a lot about how hard this team works, how good the locker room is. So a lot of credit to the staff and Brady Hoke that was here before. They did not leave this place broken.
And he was rather clear. He wanted to coach the defensive line, not be a coordinator. He said he enjoyed it, but he wanted to coach the defensive line.
And there's Don Brown, the newly named defensive coordinator, brought over from Boston College. We spent time in the ACC this year, and everyone's like, you have got to see this Boston College defense. So when Harbaugh was going to look for a guy, he pulled up the stats, saw the #1 defense in the country was Boston College, started researching Don Brown, found out he was a good dude, hired him.
Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Yeah, I had a chance to visit with Don Brown on the sidelines prior to the game, and I asked him, I said, how much of an adjustment do you make? Do you come into here, Michigan, do you just fine-tune things, or do you make your changes? He said, well, there are some fine-tunes, but said, by and large, I was hired to come in and do a job. He said, I'm just here relaxing for a couple of days, going to go up in the press box and watch a while. There's no pit in my stomach. He said, but tomorrow, I do know that I will be making some changes, and there will be some significant changes as to what I want to do defensively here at Michigan.
And Jerry, a lot of people didn't even know who was the coordinator of Boston College. They looked at the numbers, and every time Jim Harbaugh would call somebody, he says, you got to look at that guy at Boston College because he's #1 in this, #1 in that, #1 in this. Yeah. And eventually they figured out who was the coordinator at BC.
And Greg Madison, like you mentioned, longtime coordinator, 3 years coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens under Jim Harbaugh's brother John. Said he liked the college game better, felt he had more of an impact, decided to come back.
How about this? One of the guys who is deep for Michigan is the tight end Jake Butt, because he has such great hands. Now they'll throw it underneath.
Can't go down.
Thought the Gators were just going to start lateraling the ball, but Brandon Powell made the catch and tried to do it on his own. Very interesting first half. Florida moved the ball a lot better than people expected, but mistakes really killed them. And they will go into the locker room down 10 as Michigan did a great job against that wonderful Florida defensive unit. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Well, Coach, offensively, you guys have moved the football. We saw you consoling Treon Harris after the pick. And how would you describe his play in the first half?
You know what? He's doing a pretty darn good job. We're getting beat up front, though. They're taking it to us. You know, their big guys are handling us on both sides of the ball. But, you know, he got confused on the down. They called it 4th down there, and then all of a sudden it flipped to 1st down, and he was trying to make a play. So, you know what? He's doing a good job. And you know, for us, we'll come out second half and have a good time and sling it around a little bit.
Hey, what's your biggest concern defensively here down by 10 at half?
Well, I think the big thing is you know, they're controlling the ball and the time, you know, so possessions are going to be a must for us offensively this half. We got to produce points when we got the ball because they're doing a good job of keeping it away from us.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
At the half, our score, Michigan 17, Florida 7. When we come back, Chris Cotter, Butch Davis, and Joey Galloway will bring you up to date with the Coke Zero halftime report, as well as we'll check in with Reese and the gang at the Rose Bowl. After this message and a word from our ABC station.
Welcome back to Capital One Bowl Mania.
You can't fight the friction. So, you can't take the pressure. You can't fight the friction.
We're in Orlando, and welcome back to the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl as part of Capital One Bowl Mania. 17-7 as we get ready to start the third quarter. Mike Patrick, Ed Cunningham, Dr. Jerry Punch, our talented crew. Glad you could be with us this afternoon for a game that has been extremely interesting on several levels in the first half.
Well, we didn't expect Florida to have any offense. They've been able to get something going. But really, I think what's been the most impressive is Michigan's offensive line against a very good Florida defensive line. Here early, we saw that this defensive front healthy really for the first time all season long, getting all wrapped up by that front from Michigan. Devion Smith, of course, is always going to get some tough runs. Terrific block by Carriage, the fullback here, allows the finish into the end zone for Drake Johnson. And then Treon Harris, and we heard from Jim McElwain when he was talking to Jerry Punch going in at halftime that unfortunately Treon Harris was confused, thought that was 4th down, and thought that he needed to throw it. He didn't, of course. And then the pump fake that gets Vernon Hargraves, a future first-round pick, to bite for the touchdown to Chesson. Chesson, of course, coming back next year. Rudock's not. However, this offense has one more half to play with Rudock at the helm.
And as a defensive back, is there any more sinking feeling than
when you jump it?
Taking that first step forward and realizing you're wrong and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it? Lewis and Chesson are deep as Michigan will get the ball to start the second half. Chesson roars across the 30. And our chance to check in with Jerry Punch. Doc?
Mike, at halftime, Jim Harbaugh said he needed this defense to be able to get the quarterback from Florida, Treon Harris, on the ground, or at least stay in their lanes and keep him in the pocket. He said offensively, we've got to do a better job of mixing up our play call, which is on him because he's calling most of the plays. And then he told his offensive line, if we will just sustain some blocks and stay on some blocks up front a little bit longer, we'll open some huge holes and be able to run the ball very effectively in the second half.
Thank you, Doc. Smith starts 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. No fullback in this set. Smith ran wild early. Boy, broke 2 tackles, will pick up a couple of yards.
He is something. I mean, earlier in the year when he was battling that ankle injury, you could see he just didn't have his normal power. He's not a breakaway back, but at 228 pounds, a junior out of Ohio. 6.4 yards, pretty good average against top 3 or 4 defensive fronts in the SEC is what you're looking at for Florida.
Both wide receivers to the far side. Smith will go in motion. Rudock short set. That pass is tipped and then caught. Darboh makes the catch after Tabor got a fingertip on it. It altered the path. but Darboh still able to make the catch.
Tabor dropping off, knowing that he had safety help, and he's just reading Rudak's eyes, and Rudak gets just enough air on that. And Tabor, you can see, as the safety Neal gets there just a touch late. Nice job by Darboh. We've seen a couple guys from Florida when they're coming to hit him short arm, but not that time for Darboh.
Tabor has some serious hops, doesn't he?
Yeah. 6 feet, just a sophomore out of Washington, D.C. Very bright future. Just not enough there.
Shift the power of the formation to the right. Fullback on the field for Smith, and he'll get the carry, and he is drilled. Straight up the middle, Caleb Brantley, a very physical interior lineman. Remember the time he missed earlier in the game? He didn't miss this time.
Yeah. Well, he's working on Callis, the guard, and he splits the double team between he and the right tackle, Eric Magnuson. And that's just excellent work. Brantley, a guy who was bothered by some groin and abdominal strain issues down the stretch, had to sit out the Florida Atlantic game. He can be dominant. He's going to be back for another season. Good news for the Gators.
From the 49. Fake one way. Throw it over the middle to Jake Butt. And where they mark it, he has just enough for a first down.
And Jared Davis came in. This was one of those ones where guys go to clean up when a guy's going down. And Davis, who has been had a little extracurricular after the play, he came in with his head down and hit Butt. Butt seems to be okay, but watch Davis. Let's see if he drops his head. This is the dangerous play. Boy, he sure did drop his head. And this is the reason, you know, ooh. Now, Butt is running. He's not a blind receiver, so he is not a defenseless player. However, if he were going down, Davis, I think, could have been called for targeting there. And this is why the rule is in there. It's not just for the player being hit. It is completely unsafe for both players to drop your head like that.
Davis certainly got the worst of it. He's still on the sideline. Smith again. Grabbed around the neck by Bullard. Boy, Bullard is going to make somebody a great defensive lineman for the next 12 years.
And it's the right side of this offensive line, Kyle Callis and Eric Magnuson, that seem to be having the trouble with Brantley and Bullard. That time Bullard doing exactly what Brantley did the play before we showed.
Rudock on the roll and almost pulled in by Chesson. What a catch! As he went up to grab it at the sideline, landed out of bounds. How's that for an athletic play?
Looked like Rudock was throwing this thing away.
I think he was.
He was, and just said, no, I'm trying to go make a play. But Davis, this is a big loss.
Davis heading to the Gators locker room.
Yeah, depth issues. Anthony Harrell, a backup linebacker, was also academically suspended, just like the tackle Mason Halter. And they're also down Alex Anzalone, a linebacker who was hurt earlier in the season. So maybe some depth issues at linebacker for Florida.
But still on the field as he delivered a blow. This pass is complete for another first down. Jake Butt at the 28. Not only able to continue to play, but find room and make the catch.
Well, I mentioned some of those linebackers out. He's one-on-one with Tabor and throws him. What a route. This is where Jake Butt's going to look really special when he decides to go to the NFL.
That's a tight end against a corner.
And he shook him. That was a great move. Froze him with his eyes, broke to the inside. Rudock throws a nice dime in there. Good route, and that's not from the tight end position. That's a slot receiver position.
Smith again. Big hole. May have another first down at the 18-yard line, and Homa, the big fullback, helped clear the way.
This is a bad start for Florida. Just get, that right side, I was saying they were getting beaten. All of a sudden, they open up about a 4-foot wide hole, and Jim Harbaugh's team starting to grind some clock, wear out Jeff Collins' defense. And this was a trouble down the end for Collins and his defense, just being on the field so much. And that interception at the end of the half, we heard Jim McElwain say his quarterback thought it was 4th down and could make a play. Well, fortunately, it was a turnover, and all of a sudden, Michigan gets the ball and starts driving.
Whoever Homa blocked, he just buried him. Smith again. Nice hole. Need to reach the 8 for yet another first down. And these are the kind of, especially when you're behind, the kind of demoralizing drives where you know you're the strength of the team. You've got to stand up. You've got to stop them. And they just continue to push you back.
For Jim Harbaugh, it's been, from his days at Stanford through the NFL to now, he always has a terrific offensive line. I mean, they've built a factory. David Shaw has kept it going, draft choice after draft choice. And, of course, Michigan has as good an offensive line history as any school in the country. Has a great academic background, played at the highest level, and they're going to continue to build. They've got some really good players. Mason Cole, a terrific second-year sophomore. Graham Glasgow is going to move on. He's a senior, probably going to play in the NFL. But if you're an offensive lineman and you get a call from Jim Harbaugh, you usually take that call.
Heavy formation on 3rd and 2. Carriage is the running back, and Florida flag down.
Florida broke the huddle with 12 guys, unfortunately.
Defense. 5-yard penalty. First down.
Holy cow, what a big call. Instead of having to get 3rd and 2 against a great run defense, they give them the first down.
And Jordan Sherritt, when Florida was stepping up to the line of scrimmage, Sherritt looked around and realized, oh, wait a minute, there's 5 defensive linemen and 4, and he started running out. But it's too late. When you break the huddle and start to go to the line of scrimmage, if there's still 12 guys on the field, you get the penalty.
That's so you can't deceive the other team.
Right now, Florida could use 12, the way this drive is going.
Yeah. Unusual formation there, and then they fumbled a snap. Looked like Rudock got it back. They split the fullbacks, Carriage and Homa, and Justice Reed, number 97, submarine the whole thing. Sometimes you can outsmart yourself.
Yeah, it did seem like they were overthinking this. Ball just a touch short. It is hard if you're a center and you've got a guy like Justice Reed shooting in. Sometimes you'll short arm it a bit, and that looked like Glasgow maybe did, but that was a bunch of shifting and looked like Michigan outthought itself a bit.
And Florida is going to take a timeout. They were either confused or they had 12 guys. Oh, this time they only had 10. 11 is the best way to go, guys.
10 and 12 added together, the average, 11.
Later today on ESPN, your New Year's Day college football fix continues at 5 Eastern. Number 6, Stanford takes on number 5, Iowa in the Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual. That should be very physical. Then at 8:30, the All-State Sugar Bowl. Number 16, Oklahoma State, and number 12, Ole Miss. Both games also streaming live on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app. And the Rose Bowl game will feature one of the great all-purpose athletes in the game today, Christian McCaffrey. Almost 3,500 all-purpose yards.
I think that's the last time he's going to walk today at the Rose Bowl. For the rest of the day, he's going to be running.
2nd and goal now. And Bullard jumped. Was he drawn?
Offside. Defense. Number 90. Making contact with an offensive lineman. Half the distance to the goal. Second down.
It's 2 big breaks the defense has given Michigan on this drive.
Nice hard count. You could see the body of Rudock. A little bit of a move by Smith, the running back, that wasn't seen potentially.
Just a little twitch, which is enough to draw someone.
But we want to mention Vernon Hargreaves has not been in the game for a while. There's no report that he's injured. He's suited up like he's going to play, but he has not played this series at all.
Slant pass, almost picked, but it's a touchdown to Grant Perry. That was so close to a pick six. Marcus May read it beautifully, and it went right past him into the arms of Perry. Rudock televised that pass.
I mean, May misses that by a fingernail. I mean, if May didn't clip his fingernails before the game, he may have knocked that off center. and been incomplete. He certainly did read those eyes, and Perry, the true freshman I mentioned, who's really earned his way up into that spot. That's a tougher catch than you think. It looks like all the world it's about to be hit. You got to stay on it.
And Rudock really had some steam on it, too. That prevented the interception. Michigan extends its lead as Rudock to Perry. Boy, was that close. Touchdown, Wolverines.
Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl, brought to you by your local Lexus dealer and their pursuit of perfection.
Florida's pep rally yesterday at the Orlando Eye. We're fixated on that Ferris wheel, aren't we? 24-7, Michigan over Florida. And let's take a look at the Bowl Challenge Cup, brought to you by Progressive. And here's the stunner. The Southeastern Conference has the best record so far in the Bowl Challenge Cup, 4-1. The most impressive, of course, last night, Alabama's whitewashing Michigan State.
Big Ten's not out of it, though. They can get a win here and put a loss on the SEC. Michigan over Florida.
That drive over 6 minutes. Hargraves back in the ballgame will return this kick, but only to the 18-yard line.
You know, I wonder if Hargraves, he's a guy who's already committed to going to the NFL, the game getting maybe a bit out of hand. It is always good for a coach to think about guys' futures. I'm wondering if they're just not giving him as much reps. Bad news for Florida at the end of that series. Caleb Brantley went down. Their fine defensive tackle looked like he was suffering from cramps and has been taken into the locker room. And C.C. Jefferson, a defensive end who gives them good depth and plays a bit on offense, has been hobbling around on the sidelines as well. But that was Brantley, who was standing at the end of the play and then went down, and they worked on his right calf and seems to be in a lot of pain.
They were trying to stretch out his legs, but once you get him in this kind of heat for a big guy, Harris will go down. They sack him back at the 8-yard line. Chris Wormley was the first guy in there. Royce Jenkins Stone also got in there. You talked earlier, Ed, about Wormley feeling dissed before this bowl game.
And Wormley was a guy who he was another guy who was looking at the NFL potentially and looking at maybe his grade. He met with the coaches and said, no, I'll be back. But he has been playing with a motor, that's for sure. You kind of stand out. If you're going to go with number 43 as a 300-pound defensive lineman, you got to have some game. You got to stand up a little bit.
And that defensive line can now tee off on Harris. Give it to Taylor. It was a really slow developing play. That just took forever, and you knew it wasn't going to go anywhere.
Now this defense now for Michigan starting to feel itself a little bit. You've kind of felt, and we've covered, this is the third game we've covered of Florida this year. Jim McElwain has done such a good job. This team has kind of teetered on the edge of disaster, even through those 10 wins. Doug Nussmeier has done everything he can to try to develop something through Treon Harris once they lost Will Greer. But you kind of felt down the stretch, Florida State, Alabama, and even though they're playing hard today, they just didn't quite have enough against these top-level teams.
3rd and 21. Now hand it to Taylor. This play worked the last time they had a 3rd and long. They broke Taylor for a big run. Jared Wilson, number 22, the safety, came up to get him. And they'll have to kick it away.
Wilson, who, of course, had that interception to end the half. Getting the chest bumps with Jabril Peppers. Peppers, a second-year player, not playing today, was a second-team All-American, a really explosive guy, hurt his hand. He has to be happy with how his defensive backfield mates have played today.
Townsend to punt to Darboh, who waits back all the way inside his 25-yard line. High short kick. And it will take a Michigan bounce and be down there. 5 o'clock, David Shaw and Stanford will take on Iowa. Stanford 11-2 this year. Iowa just that single loss.
Cassidy Hubbard with your Sports Center right now, brought to you by Great Clips. Notre Dame and Ohio State, and Ezekiel Elliott running all over the Irish. A 47-yard touchdown, his 4th rushing touchdown of the day, tying a Fiesta Bowl record. 35-21 Ohio State this game over on ESPN. Back to you guys.
Cassidy, thanks so much. We're not impressed unless somebody rushes for over 650 yards.
Yeah, we had the Russell Athletic Bowl here in the same building, and I think North Carolina just gave up another 40-yard run.
I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again.
How about a back?
Ever.
Johnny Jefferson came into that game with 701 yards and left with 1,000 for the season. Ran for 299.
That was something. Michigan would like nothing better than a sustained drive and just put this thing away. Smith will pick up 3, maybe 4.
Yeah, you're starting to see a lot of depth on the defensive line now for Florida. Some numbers that haven't played a bunch down the stretch. Joey Ivy is in there. We showed you that Brian Cox Jr., a guy who's been playing a lot, but Caleb Brantley was helped off with what looked like cramps. C.C. Jefferson, defensive end who's in the rotation, was over on the sidelines hobbling around on crutches. So a group that came in finally healthy, except for Alex McAllister, starting to take some dings with how much they've been on the field.
Shift both tight ends to the right and then send Butt back to the left. Rudock. Chesson beats Hargraves. Runs a post, and Rudock put it on the money for 45.
Well, we had mentioned that Hargraves had not played at cornerback that whole series. Maybe he was just rotating some younger guys in, knowing Hargraves is leaving. But this is the second time that Chesson has beat Hargraves. Just had the inside on him the whole way. Jake Rudock is on the money, isn't he?
Yes,
this is as accurate as it gets. And this is a guy in Rudock who last year in the bowl game against Tennessee got benched after he was 2 of 8. In that game, they were down 35-7 at half. So a much better way to play in a bowl game than last year at Iowa.
Chesson has 118 yards on 5 carries. What a tackle by Keanu Neal to stop Smith. Doc, what do you have?
Hey, guys, Jim Harbaugh says Jake Rudock, obviously has a very, very precise and strong arm. He said, but his biggest skill may be his composure and poise under duress. So this young man wants to become a surgeon someday. He said his attention to detail and demeanor is perfect as a surgeon. He said, I would have no problem at all looking up from underneath the drape knowing this is the guy that's going to operate on me because this young man is a winner.
Pretty good endorsement there, isn't it, Doctor?
Well, you might want to wait till he goes to med school before you lay down on an operating table for him.
Smith got close to the one before he was pushed back.
And Rudock, one of those many that we're starting to see more and more graduate transfers. As soon as you have your undergraduate degree, you are free to transfer without penalty. And of course, for Michigan, they already have another one in stock. John O'Korn, the Houston transfer. Chesson had to come out. For Michigan fans, hope he's okay. He's walking a little gingerly. But O'Korn and Rudock went to the same high school here in Florida, St. Thomas Aquinas. So probably a relationship building. Well, we've already got one of your guys. If there's another transfer, bring him on.
3rd and goal. They give it to the fullback, Homa, who just bowls his way into the end zone. His 5th rushing touchdown of the season, all 242 pounds. The big senior may have put it away.
Seems like the fans cheer a little louder when Homa gets the ball than
Don't they?
else. Big senior, had 0 carries coming into this year. And how many touchdowns now?
That's 5. Sione Homa. Yes, sir. Makes all those long practices worth it.
That's how you get your groove on, Mike.
Tomorrow afternoon, the college football bowl season continues on ESPN. First at noon Eastern, Penn State will take on Georgia in the Tax Slayer Bowl. Then at 3:20, Kansas State against Arkansas in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. Both games streaming live on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app. All the Michigan fans who made the long journey down here to where it's been in the mid-80s having a very enjoyable day. The Gators not nearly as much. Callaway on the return, and we go to Jerry Punch. Doc?
Hey, Mike, one of the reasons that Florida's got so much inexperience at the quarterback spot is they have lost so many quarterbacks. Take a look over the last few years. Jacoby Brissett was a former starter, transferred to NC State, led them to 2 bowl games. Jeff Driscoll, a couple of weeks ago, was the MVP of the New Orleans Bowl for Louisiana Tech. Tyler Murphy went to Boston College, and Will Greer, who was suspended this year, has admitted he will transfer, all before the McElwain era. So Jim McElwain has got some building to do at the quarterback spot.
And Jerry's got a lot of building to do all over the place because he's going to lose so many of his seniors. Trying to get something going here with Cronkrite.
Well, and that was really the downfall of the Will Muschamp era. When this staff got here, they said that the cupboards were full on defense. We had plenty of players. They knew what they were doing offensively. The turnover that Muschamp had at the quarterback and offensive coordinator job just made it impossible to keep people around. And you look at those guys who transferred. Jacoby Brissett had a terrific year for NC State this year. Tyler Murphy last year, one of the best running quarterbacks in the country. And as Doc mentioned, the season Jeff Driscoll had at Louisiana Tech, they didn't just lose guys, they lost good guys.
Harris throwing the slant a little too far inside to Powell. Good coverage by Jordan Lewis. And the problem is, if one quarterback commits to a school, that makes other guys unwilling to commit, then he transfers to you have nothing.
It's a really unique position. There is no position that I can think of in any sport where another guy's just not going to play. There is a first string and everybody else for the most part.
Blitz coming. Harris runs for his life and throws it away. And the pressure from DeMonte Thomas came on the blitz, number 25. Michigan now just owns this ball game.
Good movement up front, a late delay. Excellent job on the late blitz there by DeMonte Thomas, the linebacker who's there is kind of the spy. If he's running away, go chase him. Good job.
Townsend will punt. Darbo is deep. Nice kick this time. Driving spiral. Sends it back to the 15-yard line. And Darbo gets to the 25. 11-yard return after a 61-yard punt.
And it is all about accuracy for Rudock. When I studied him and he was Iowa, he had some moments where he was really good with the ball. And now working under Jim Harbaugh, and of course the quarterback's coach, Jed Fish, he has gotten even better. Sees it, throws it. It's got a really nice throwing motion. The ball comes out in that one. You were calling for the pick six by Marcus May.
I saw his movement.
You thought he was going the other way for 100, but Rudock has been on target. And Doc said, you know, the guy does want to get into medicine, but he's going to give the NFL a shot. He's going to, after being coached for a year by Jim Harbaugh, I think he's going to get into a camp. He really does throw the ball well. He can move a little bit. I'll be surprised if he's not on a roster. If not late into camp, he may make a team. And then if that doesn't work out, he said he's going to take a year off, and then he's going to go to medical school. But that year off might be a ways away.
I want to talk about Harbaugh for a second because we met with him the other day. I've admired him for years and years as a player and a pro quarterback, and now as a coach. I don't know that I have ever been around anybody who loved the game any more than he did. Just a game. Just line up anywhere. He'd go play in the street if he could.
When he was playing in the NFL as a quarterback, he went and became an unpaid assistant on his dad's staff for 7 years at Western Kentucky.
How about that?
He helped administrative stuff. He helped in recruiting. And then when he got out of playing, he got a job at the University of San Diego. Not San Diego State.
Right.
The University of San Diego. Built a perennial winner there. Then got the job at Stanford. People are thinking, wait, this is a new coach. No, he had about 11 years of coaching experience before he got that job at Stanford. And just the word that comes out to me is grit. He's just a gritty guy, and it shows up on his team.
Rudolph's going to keep. Dives forward. He's got enough for the first down to the 28. Of course, the Harbaugh family known for coaching. That's Jack, who coached at Western Michigan from 82 to 86, Western Kentucky for 13 years, and he's just known as one of the legendary classic head football coaches.
Won a national championship in 2002 as the head coach at Western Kentucky.
Not a bad family. You got Jim on there, of course, now here at Michigan, had an NFC championship with the 49ers. Brother John won the Super Bowl against him. And Jack, of course, we mentioned, he was just a legend among other coaches. They just talked about him glowingly. And Tom Crean thought the family was so good he married into it. He's the head basketball coach at Indiana. When we talked to Harbaugh the other day, and I'll paraphrase this because I can't quote it. He said, how much fun is it to go on the road against somebody you're not supposed to beat and play in the mud and the rain and the cold and beat them? Well, that's a guy who wants to play football.
And Jack Harbaugh, although officially retired, he still watches film of guess which two teams? Michigan and Baltimore. John and Jim still send their dad film. Every Monday you get on a call with Dad and he breaks down what he has seen. It's still just an absolute blast for him to be around this. And of course, you know, if that was your profession and you used to haul around Jim and John in your car for high school games you were scouting, recruiting trips and all of that stuff, what a good deal to have your two sons turn out like this.
Blitz coming. They pick it up, giving Rudock time to throw. He gets it to the big guy Homa out in the flat, but he can't keep his feet.
Homa's trying to, you know, we're talking about, this is a tape game. If you have aspirations to play in the NFL, which a lot of these guys certainly do, this is a game where when the NFL scouts start breaking you down, they'll start with this one. A, it's the last game of the year. B, it's two really good opponents with a bunch of NFL quality players on each side. And Homa, a guy who with his ability to run, catch, and we've seen him block, and we've also seen the incredible blocking of Joe Carriage. This guy's going to get a nice look as well.
And there are still a few teams in the NFL that do use a fullback and use them extensively. It has become a specialty position. Almost caught by Darboh. Joey Ivy just unloaded on Rudock. There is a flag down.
And Harbaugh is livid again. His quarterback we saw earlier, Jared Davis, take an extra shot on Rudock. And this one, Quincy Wilson, Darboh spun around kind of awkwardly. I couldn't quite tell what happened, but the way Harbaugh was grabbing at his face mask, I wonder if Wilson... That's a legal hit.
I think the helmet got up under his chin. I think that's the concern there. And then Darboh.
That penalty's declined. Personal foul. Face mask. Defense. Number 6. 15-yard penalty. First down.
And the bad news.
Quincy Wilson, and he just almost yanked his head off.
Well, and the bad news for Darboh was the way his head hit the ground. You know, just a meaningless play. Not a dirty play by Wilson. He's just going in there. Doesn't know he's grabbing it. Grabbed the top. Wasn't trying to hurt anyone. But unfortunately for Darboh, as he spun around, it looked like his head may have hit the turf hard. That's, again, as we're talking about safety here in this game, you can see Michigan doing a nice job of tending to Darboh. It looked like they were calling for some additional help. But what a bummer for Darboh and for Wilson. You know, he's not trying to do anything dirty here and just finishing up the play.
No, just trying to make a play.
Yeah, and the body spun around, and you could see Darboh's head slam on the turf. What a bummer. I hope he's okay.
Well, this will be a tough way for the Gators to end their season. The highlight, of course, was when they played number 3 Ole Miss and beat them 38-10.
But it's the head that comes back as he's trying to finish it. Yeah, that's a bummer. And he got up. Darboh has gotten up on his own and walked off the field. And, you know, we're at 31-7, about to get in the fourth quarter. Let's get all these guys on the bus healthy the rest of the way out. That'd be a pretty good goal here.
Smith, the deep man in the eye, he's had a really good ball game. Picks up a couple here. Smith, 21 carries, 103 yards. Now we got some guys wolfing at each other. I'd pick on somebody else besides A.J. Williams. Find a guy out there wearing a boot.
I'm not sure I'd stir anything up right now. If I were playing, I'd be thinking, let's do our assignments here. Let's look good on film the rest of the way out. Get ourselves some Buffalo Wild Wings in a box for the ride to the airport and go on home.
Because I don't think the final score is going to change. Four-man rush. Rudock steps up. Gets as much as he can and gets out of bounds in front of Daniel McMillan. You know, these guys, for a lot of teams, transfer senior quarterbacks, guys who graduate somewhere else, these are godsends for teams that find themselves, good teams that find themselves without a quarterback.
Yeah, and people are torn. You know, the rule was put in for academic reasons. The idea is if you graduate somewhere and they don't have the master's you want to work on, you can transfer somewhere else. Well, all you got to do is find a master's program that's at one school, not the other. So it is a bit of a trick, kind of free agency. But we had a great conversation with Jim Harbaugh about it. He may rely on a transfer once again, with John O'Korn transferring in from Houston, eligible next season.
Here's another tight end, Khalid Hill. He's only 263. They got the market cornered on huge tight ends. Gain of 24. That's the end of the third period at the Citrus Bowl. We will continue after this message and a word from our ABC station. Aerial coverage provided by Goodyear. Whether you're going for it from a few yards out or from miles away, go with the tire with superior performance. Goodyear, more driven. And the Michigan Wolverines have been more driven this afternoon on the way to their 10th victory of this season in their final opportunity.
First time for 10 wins at Michigan if they get it since the first year of Brady Hoke in 2011. They take it over for Rich Rodriguez. Of course, Rodriguez left a guy named Denard Robinson around after he left, which was pretty helpful.
Good.
Yeah, it was pretty helpful.
Homa gets a couple.
Homa's had himself a nice game, hasn't he?
Hasn't he, though?
Yeah. That's what's fun. We were talking to Tim Drevno, the offensive line coach and offensive coordinator, and saying, what is it with Harbaugh and this offensive line and how good they are? And said Harbaugh just likes big guys. He likes to be around big people. He wants big bodies. If he doesn't work out at fullback, let's try him at defensive end. They just like the bigger people around. You saw what they were able to do at Stanford.
It's a lot to be said for that. Rudock.
You know, I played at the University of Washington, so to see what Jim Harbaugh and then what David Shaw's been able to do at Stanford, after knowing what it was for that long, it's a perennial top 10 program. That's a mind blower. Just to even think that that was possible. But they went to a unique place. They were able to sell a unique thing, especially offensive lineman types who have good GPAs. And Michigan is that type of place. It's got an unbelievable history, of course. But if he was able to sell and build Stanford into a top 10 program, what happens at Michigan 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now if he's still got the headset on and the glasses at the end of the nose?
Draw play to Drake Johnson. Gets outside. Lost the ball, but it's out of bounds. You know, you're absolutely right about that, but here's the thing. Other guys couldn't do that. Other guys could not sell it as a destination program, and that's what separates coaches like Harbaugh from the other guys.
And Michigan's been a destination, and now you've got a dynamic guy at head coach. Just like at Ohio State, there's a dynamic guy, and just like the consistency that is Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State. I mean, it's not going to be easy because there's great competition, especially in the Big Ten East. But you got to like these guys' chances.
Well, think back when they went astray, when they hired Rich Rodriguez and had to change the culture. Why in His name, would you have to change the culture at a place like Michigan? A lot of people, a lot of places needed their cultures changed. Michigan wasn't one of them.
Well, and you think about the luck of Michigan. Brady Hoke gets fired, and that was, Brady had a good team last year.
Yes, he did.
And he left this. There is almost all the guys you're seeing are from the Brady Hoke regime. So this place was not totally broken. But you can't stay more in-house than Jim Harbaugh. 21-3-1 as the starting quarterback. And oh, by the way, 4-0 against Michigan State and Ohio State as the starting quarterback at Michigan. So he came in with pretty good pedigree. Forget what he did as a head coach before that. He was a pretty big deal.
Yes, he was eagerly welcomed by the alumni. Rudock tries to split two defenders, gets down to the 7-yard line. The helmet flies off of Jordan Sherritt, the defensive end, with that unusual defensive end number of 17. Of course, there it is. That's pretty good culture. More wins than anybody.
Of course, back in the 30s and 40s, they were playing 40 and 50 games a year at Michigan. But it feels like we're playing that now, doesn't it?
I missed that somewhere.
Yeah, but it does feel like we're
they were playing
now.
9.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's not a place that needs much changing. Of course, the Big House, one of the best venues in college football.
Third down, Rudock, wide open. Drake Johnson, touchdown.
I love the heel click. Careful.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's as if Gene Kelly or Fred Astaire played football.
I wonder if he's yelling "wee" when he does that. Well, this has become, I've been on teams that end the season with a good win like this. It's amazing what this can do for you going into the offseason. And I know there's some questions. And probably, almost didn't get his heel click in because he had to stumble into the lead-up. But this is really a nice opportunity for Michigan. Some of the young guys who haven't played as much will start getting in some, get their motor running a little bit as they go into the offseason.
As you're on the way to the airport this afternoon to go home, try that heel click. It's not that easy. C.J. Beathard, Bobby's grandson, the starting quarterback for the Hawkeyes. 13-1. They'll play in the Rose Bowl when we're done here.
I thought you said they got a Buick.
Welcome back to Orlando, Michigan, dominating now 38-7. Our opportunity to thank our crew who did such a tremendous job for us this year. There's Behrens. Eric. Dutch shot all the great shots for our billboards. Just a wonderful camera guy. Kenny. And there's Tommy. And of course, Anthony Holman and Steve Turnberger and everybody in the truck for just the exceptional work that they did all year long. And I truly mean exceptional. It has been a great joy for us to work with them and with Jerry Punch. And my thanks to Ed for sharing all the knowledge that he has accumulated. It's been a ball.
Yeah. I haven't given my final grade yet, though. 12:26 left in the fourth quarter. I got to make sure we have a clean broadcast.
We got to stick to it.
Yeah, we're not done.
And Mark Fredrickson and Dave Dare up here in the booth, our longtime statistician and spotter and stage manager, guys that have just been so loyal and so good for so long. Thank you. Harris done his best job with his legs today.
At this point, you would be saying, well, wait a minute, why aren't we playing the backup quarterback? The problem for Florida is their backup quarterback is actually a wide receiver transfer from Vanderbilt, Josh Grady. When Will Greer left, we showed earlier, Dr. Punch did the story with all the transfers of quarterbacks before Jim McElwain and his staff took over. So there really is nobody to put in that would benefit as much as Treon Harris does from these reps. Harris, of course, a sophomore, had to play as a true freshman last year and Will Muschamp last season. So 2 years left. He'll be in a good competition in the spring. So still good reps for him.
Been some articles written about wanting to turn him either into a wide receiver or a defensive back. Still thinks he has a future as a quarterback. He wants to compete for that spot.
There are times when you watch Harris where when he sees it and throws it, he just gets rid of it. He can be very accurate. He's not unusual in that sometimes he'll think just a half a second. He's a guy who's only in his second year, so he's got a lot of ball to go. Of course, Doug Nussmeier, the former quarterback himself, and Jim McElwain have both coached offensive quarterbacks a long time. They can get him there closer, but if I were Harris, I'd want to hang in there a little bit myself and see if I can't win a competition in the spring.
2nd and 10. Harris, quarterback draw. Nothing there. Taking out of bounds by Hill.
And, you know, really a lot of credit needs to go this season to Doug Nussmeier, the offensive coordinator. He was the offensive coordinator last year. For 1 year, left Alabama, went to Michigan with Brady Hoke. The staff was let go. But Nussmeier and Greg Madison, the now defensive coordinator for Michigan, last year developed a really good friendship. And they were both looking forward to this opportunity. They had called plays against each other in practice last year, and the two good pals were looking forward to call. Plays today. Nussmeier a little shorthanded. However, you got to give Madison and his group the gold star. What an effort today.
Absolutely. Harris under pressure. Misses Callaway. And Harris went down.
Well, this you don't want to see. Driven into the ground. That left elbow landed a little funny.
Willie Henry was the guy who took him down.
And Henry, who's had just a monster game. Another one of the returners for next year. Probably about 15 out of the 22 starters will return for both of these teams. So question marks at quarterback for both, but this is going to be two pretty solid groups coming back next season for both sides.
They faked a punt. And they will not get it as they try to run with Taven Bryan, the defensive lineman who showed up from Wyoming. Nobody recruited him. He had a tape. It was so good they kept him.
The Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl, brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wings, proud presenting sponsor of the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl. And the Quicksilver card from Capital One. Earn unlimited 1.5% cash back every purchase, every day.
If it's on ESPN, it's streaming live on the ESPN app, which means you can take us with you wherever you go on your phone or tablet. It's captivating when you put it on SportsCenter and you're going somewhere, you can watch all the highlights of everything that happened all day. It's unbelievable.
I'd recommend you not do it while driving.
Oh, no, I strap it to the hood of the car. Makes a great ornament. Michigan will take over after the fake punt. Smith still in the ball game. Dancing in the backfield. May lose a yard.
Well, Sione Homa in his last game in the maize and blue. He is going to make life rough all afternoon for Matt Rowland, sophomore linebacker out of Ashburn, Virginia. Wait, it's not over yet. He's going to go get him a face full of Homa again on the backside, and then just for the fun of it, how about a touchdown for Homa? I can hear Chris Berman now. That noise he makes. We got to have the sound effects of Berman for those runs and blocks.
Rudock over the middle to a new tight end, Ian Bunting. Everybody's getting the act. They have more tight ends than most people have linemen.
I would imagine this is the last drive we're going to see Jake Rudock. Wilton Spate is a guy who came in and played really well against Minnesota when Rudock was knocked out. Drove them down for a score. 2-point conversion. Looks like our guy Jake Butt is in for the laughs for the rest of the afternoon.
Chesson has gone to the locker room. He looked fine, although remember he took that shot when his head hit the turf after his face mask had been grabbed, so maybe he's not feeling too good right now. These are all the guys that work so hard as second-team players, third-team players all year, every practice, getting a chance to get their name in the book. And they deserve it, too.
And for Florida, they get a whole 3 days off before class starts. So to go right home, jump back in the books.
Rudock short set, trying to throw, had it knocked away at the last minute. Quincy Wilson got a hand on it.
You got to think for Michigan, the reason Jake Rudock would still be throwing is this is a guy who wants to play at the next level, and all of the guys out there. So I don't think this is about score or anything. This is about a guy who played quarterback in the NFL, coached in the NFL, knows that this guy, now moved up to second in school history and passing yards for a season, needs to continue to put up tape against a good opponent. So that's why I would assume they're still throwing it here.
Rudock inside the 15 down to the 11-yard line.
Rudock closing in on a 3,000-yard passing season, which would be a big deal here at Michigan. Nice job of him taking off. Again, I think we will probably see Wilton Spate after this drive, but I can understand why you would leave Rudock in. The guy went to great lengths to transfer to your program. Let him continue to show what he can do against high-quality offense, or defense, excuse me.
Holm is back in there. Down to the 6. Well, the last thing you want to do when you're down by 31 points is stand in there and see 245 pounds coming at you and want to wrap up.
Well, this is time for some of those numbers that Florida and Michigan fans haven't seen. Although we still see a lot of starters in there. Excellent blocking. You know what? That's actually a nice tackle by May. Guys going down bigger than you, just kind of ease him to the ground. No need to get all try to go low with him.
Hey, May is a huge hitter. The secondary has as much talent as you'll find anywhere. And the turf monster got him that time. Holm was really upset. So I'm finally getting a chance to run the ball for a series or two.
And I love that they yep. Oh, and he probably walks in.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, just got his cleats out a little too far from underneath of him. He saw the cut. Just cleats let him down a little bit. He probably gets in there.
Smith comes back in on 3rd and 6. And he'll go to a wing. Rudock rifles one for the end zone. And too high for Drake Harris, the sophomore.
Put Harris in there at 6'4". Oh, right on the shoulder for the back judge. You know what, though? Never took his eye off his assignment.
No, he was good.
Didn't flinch. This ACC crew hanging in there.
Kenny Allen hit from 21 early in the ball game. This one is from 25. And Michigan rolls it up to 41 points. Wolverines have scored 7 of 8 drives today.
New story.
Celebrating its 11th year sponsoring the Good Hands Field Goal Nets All-State. Makes contributions to participating universities' general scholarship funds for each field goal and extra point kicked. To date, All-State has contributed millions in scholarship funds. Nets have been busy today. 41-7 Michigan.
I don't know about you, but I'm ready for some chicken wings. I'd buy Buffalo Wild Wings on the way home.
Should be a box of them outside the door, isn't there?
There is.
Brandon Powell on the return for the Gators. Cut down at the 16, and here's Dr. Jerry Pons. Doc?
Hey, Mike, several postseason bowl games, including this one, are doing some things to try to ease the cycle of poverty in the community right where the bowls are played. Here, Florida Citrus Sports has partnered with the College Football Playoff Foundation to donate over $400,000 for classroom projects for public schools in this very neighborhood. They're going to buy whiteboards, computers, and all kinds of school supplies, and they are very close to breaking ground on a $32 million affordable housing complex, an example of how college football is making a difference in this community off the playing field.
Well, good for them, Jerry. That's wonderful work. Grady has let in as the backup quarterback goes to Callaway. And we talked earlier about Josh, who's a transfer from Vanderbilt.
Had to go to quarterback from wide receiver, had worked himself into the rotation, had to give up that spot when Will Greer, he had played some quarterback at Vanderbilt before he transferred. So giving him a little run as a senior. He made a really big commitment to the team. He was getting 15 to 25 snaps a game as a receiver and special teams player. And then, of course, as the backup quarterback, had to give all of that up.
Blitz coming, and he is drilled. Coming off the corner, Delano Hill.
Well, that's just not fair. If that's the way you're going to come in and get your first run. Lawrence Marshall comes in there with Hill and makes a Vanderbilt transfer sandwich.
And you're so right about Grady. I mean, he transfers a chance to play wide receiver with a school that's, going to have a really good passing game. And all at once, the suspension happens. And now he's got to be the guy who makes the sacrifice for his new team.
And they said he picked it up right away. Very bright guy. He knew the offense and really had worked himself up the depth chart as a receiver and on special teams. He was getting a lot of reps in each game as a senior. And you're right, you're playing for the team that's going to be playing for an SEC championship, and then the coaches came to him and said, sorry, we got to move you. Will Greer suspended.
Yeah.
And he did it gladly. Nice for him to get some snaps at the end.
After tonight's All-State Sugar Bowl on ESPN, check out SportsCenter at night. Jay Harris, Nicole Briscoe. They'll have highlights from all 5 bowl games, the Winter Classic, the NBA, and college basketball. SportsCenter at night after Oklahoma State and Ole Miss on ESPN, as well as streaming live on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app. Florida can still have a really good taste in its mouth. They won the SEC East. No small accomplishment.
Even though they were limited on offense, the defense did a brilliant job. And Jim McElwain, as inventive as he can be on offense, tried to keep them in ball games and kept them in enough to win that division.
And as they go into spring practice, of course, Harris coming back, they'll have their own transfer quarterback in Luke Del Rio, Jack Del Rio's son, who came from Oregon State by way of Alabama first, and they have two true freshmen, Felipe Franks and Kyle Trask, who will also come in, so there'll be a four-way competition, at least for now, going into next fall for the quarterback spot. But they've got a ways to go. Will Muschamp and his staff did a wonderful job here with some defensive talent, but the offensive line needed to be repaired, and they need to work at that quarterback position, obviously.
Harris lets it go all the way to the 22. There is a marker down, a 57-yard punt with the roll.
How long was it without the roll?
I have no idea.
During the kick, illegal block in the back of the kicking team, number 11. That 10-yard penalty will be tacked on to the end of the run. First down.
It's so funny. I saw
please let that be the last question you asked me today. They're getting ready in Pasadena for the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl game. And we're almost done here.
They're going to get their groove on.
Closing minutes of the Citrus Bowl game. 5:11 to go. 41-7 Michigan.
What a final game for graduate transfer Jake Rudock. Came in for camp from Iowa after graduating and losing the starting job. He hits J.U. Jackson, who unfortunately went to the locker room. We think he's okay. Then finding an emerging star at receiver for Michigan, Grant Perry, there twice. Once in the long throw there with the tight window throw for the touchdown. Rudock having had himself a really nice game, and frankly still a little shocked that he's in there.
Me too. And now he is today's Capital One player of the game is Jake Rudock. Drake Johnson will cross the 40, pickup of about 9. Couldn't ask for anything else. 253 yards passing, his 5th straight game with over 250. Rushed for 27. Made the plays when they had to be made.
Moved up to 2nd on the single season passing chart for Michigan. Passed up his head coach Jim Harbaugh. Passed him up a while ago. Harbaugh's now down to 6th for his best single season as quarterback. Of course, a little different offenses when he was playing.
Passed Evan Gardner to get to number 2 on that list. Homo.
Well, for these coaches, they get a little more dark time. Remember, the national championship game is January 11th, so recruiting can start up again just after that. I believe the dark period ends on January 15th. And a guy who knew a thing or two about coaching, Lloyd Carr, whose last game as a head coach at Michigan was in this building, and they beat Florida. And guess who was coordinating that Florida defense? Michigan's own Greg Madison.
Drop it off to Smith.
And Madison tells a really good story when he was coaching. Of course, Florida had won the national championship the year before, and they came to play Lloyd Carr's Michigan team, and he felt like his defense maybe wasn't quite ready like they were for the national championship. Of course, they were playing for it. Of course, Lloyd Carr's team pulls out a wonderful win right at the end. Madison kept telling his Florida guys, telling you they could play, you better show up. But it was a nice way for Lloyd Carr to go out.
Quick first step, doesn't he?
You know, that's the thing about when a new staff comes in. You just see people differently. You just kind of, there's no way that as fast as Homa is, you start going through winter conditioning, you're like, wait, who's the big guy? Wait, he plays fullback? So you start to see people in different ways. Sometimes the change is good, and this is, you've got to think this guy has given himself a shot, and the coaches have given him a shot. And that's something you can sell. The next fullback you go to recruit, the next good fullback, you can just say, look what we did with this guy.
Yeah, and I don't think Jim Harbaugh's the guy who's going to care who brought him in. As long as he's there, he's going to be able to use him.
I want to go back a moment ago. We were talking about, we may go to break here, but we were talking about the graduate transfer that has happened a lot with quarterbacks, and we were talking about how it's starting to happen so much with quarterbacks, and it's such a unique position because once a starter is chosen, usually they're going to ride that guy out. And Harbaugh had a really unique perspective. He said, this is free agency, and the truth is, we don't own these kids. And for people to say, oh, well, I trained him and he shouldn't be able to transfer, he's not buying that. He thinks that these guys, if they get their degree and they want to go somewhere else, they should be able to go somewhere else. And I agree with him. I'm not sure that the rule was set up to create what has become truly a free agency system. But as an ex-player who thinks it's ridiculous that we restrict the movement of players, Harbaugh's right for it. He says, we don't own these guys. They just go where they want. How
selfish do you have to be to have a kid who did everything you asked him to do, graduates, and now you're going to tell him he can't go somewhere else?
Yeah.
We invite you to tune in to ESPN3 for the post-game trophy ceremony presented by Capital One immediately following our ball game. And only 2:25 to go.
Looks like they go with real citrus in that Citrus Bowl trophy.
Why not?
It might go bad eventually.
Well, you just replace it. Perry makes the catch on the toss from Rudock. That's 4 for the freshman slot receiver.
Rudock now over 3,000 yards for a single season at Michigan. You mentioned 5 games in a row of 250 or more. He was already at a Michigan record with 4, so extending that record. And the one and done basketball is always freshmen. Well, now the one and done in college is senior quarterbacks, because this is it.
Smith back in at tailback, works his way off the right side. One of the real pleasant quarterback stories in the entire country this year was C.J. Beathard at Iowa. A really hard-nosed kid. Got them within 1 game of an undefeated season and being in the Final Four.
And he came off the bench last year in the bowl game against Tennessee, played well enough that when they went in the offseason, decided to go with Beathard instead of Jake Rudock, who is now a Michigan Wolverine. But Beathard, a special talent at quarterback. I think Rudock's very good as well. But Beathard, a little better runner. What a snap.
Tough throw, great catch.
I think this is Jim Harbaugh doing everything he can for Jake Rudock. Get as much film on him as he possibly can. It's the only thing I can think of. They're just kind of playing it out like it's a practice. Let these guys still go. But Grant Perry, he was a guy who didn't have a whole lot of catches the first half of the season. He's going to be a nice trending upward receiver for them going into the offseason.
And now the victory formation as Harbaugh is not going to try to score. Well, what a great day for the Wolverines. He goes over 3,000 yards. They win their 10th game. Quite a first year for Jim Harbaugh. 10-3 as he comes in to restore the glory for Michigan. And Coach McElwain will be back. Jim is a great offensive mind, surrounding himself with a really good staff. He will recruit well. He's just that kind of guy. He did at Colorado State, turned down that moribund program in 3 years. Go to Jerry Punch. Doc?
Jake Rudock, 278 yards, 3 touchdowns. You're our Capital One player of the game. Describe what this emotion of this moment means to you.
It's huge. Individually, I've never been able to come out with a win the last game of the year. And these guys, we've worked so hard, this team. And, 10 wins is a big landmark to make, and we're able to make it. I'm just so proud of the guys.
What was the key to your ability to be able to move the ball so well against a very good Florida defense today?
Honestly, it goes to the big guys up front, those 5 guys. All of them doing a great job. Also, Coach Fish, our passing game coordinator, did a great job making great calls. I understood what was coming in, why it was coming in. Just all the praise to him and the rest of the guys.
On that final pass a moment ago, you became the second quarterback in the 136-year history of Michigan football to throw for 3,000 yards in a single season, young man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Go celebrate.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mike.
Doc, thanks so much.
You can see the emotion. What a terrific ending for that young man.
Final score here at the Citrus Bowl in Orlando, 41-7 Michigan. After taking a punch early from the Florida Gators offense, goes on to win and get their 10th victory of the year as opposed to 3 losses. The Gators will finish at 10-4. For our entire crew, Ed Cunningham and Dr. Jerry Punch, this is Mike Patrick. Thanks for watching, everybody. So long from Orlando.